call to order the meeting of the Harwich Conservation Commission for September 1st, 2021. Just as a public announcement, these meetings are still hybrid, where you can dial in as well as attend in person. The access to the meeting is on Channel 18, which is broadcasting live, or you can log into the meeting using the following login information. From your computer, tablet, or smartphone, the URL is https://global.gotomeeting.com/join/408416309, or you can also dial in using your phone. The phone number for the dial-in is 1-571-317-3122, and the access code is 408-416-309. So with that, we'll call the meeting to order. And the first item on the agenda is a request to amend an order of conditions for Sheila and Alfred Quirk at 11 Prince Charles Drive, map 10, parcel S26, for a proposed 4-foot deck extension and associated plantings. Do we have a proponent here to present?
Yes. Dan Croto from, and Steve from Rick Roy is also here, and Phil Cheney is available also, I believe. So what we're asking, we submitted the updated plan, site plan, and updated mitigation plan from Phil Cheney, and what the owners are requesting is to add 4 feet onto their deck to give them the outside living space they desire, and then along with that, as the project has moved on, as you can see from the mitigation plan, is they want to replace the existing brick patio, which I believe is bricks and concrete, with the same footprint with bluestone in bluestone dust, and replace the patio and the walkway going around to the driveway. And they want to reduce the height of the existing wall so that when they're sitting on the patio, they have a better view of the water. So the deck extension is within the 50 to 60 foot setback. It is over existing landscaped area. And so they're looking for that desirable relief. Due to not being any detriment, and we hope the commission sees it as an improvement, because along with this extension is needing to add the mitigation along the pond front, which I think is much beneficial to the wetland resource and for wildlife. So in order to add this cantilever, or this area, this raised deck up in the heavily landscaped area, which is not which would not be considered much of a wildlife or native habitat, they realized they would need to double that area right along the pond front, which has which right now is grass right to the water in a lot of places. Part of the original order of conditions approved back in December, I believe, was to add 510 square feet of mitigation, and now they're bringing that up to 840 square feet of native plantings along the water that should help intercept stormwater and groundwater flow on its way to the pond. With that, we just to reiterate, I think also the idea of changing from when the 50 to 60 got changed, the reason was to avoid people going into the setback I mean, going into the 50 foot, keeping that undisturbed, but in a case like this where it's already heavily disturbed, it seems as though that they could get this desirable relief, and in the long run, it would be environmentally beneficial. So I'll leave it with that, and we're all here for questions.
Okay, thank you. Amy, do you have any comments?
Sure. As Dan previously stated, the commission saw this a year or two ago for adding 2 additions onto the home. What they would like to do now is amend that to expand the deck that they were approved for. Actually, there was an existing deck anyways. To expand that 4 feet closer to the water. And associated with that is a little bit of other hardscape modification, moving the shower, proposed window well, relocate steps, minor stuff around the home like that. As stated, the addition of the deck is between 50 and 60 feet of the resource area. That means a couple of things. One, it needs 2-to-1 mitigation, which they already had to do some mitigation, so they're tacking on to those areas, which I think makes sense, is to enhance those, the size of those mitigation areas they already have to do. Dan mentioned the commission's 60-foot, no new, well, it says no building or addition, so I wouldn't consider this deck expansion either a building or addition. It's a deck. So I don't think they need a variance from that 60-foot regulation. And I would agree that it doesn't promote any further encroachment into the 50-foot no disturb zone than there already is. As Dan stated, it was previously all lawn. They had to do some mitigation, now they have to do even more. So I think overall there will be a net benefit for this modest increase in deck size. They do already have the condition of no chemicals and fertilizers. We can just reiterate that in the amendment. Everything at the site, we were out there today, due to the construction is kind of all torn up anyways. We would recommend, and the owners probably already want to do this, is there's a lot of seedling locust trees coming up, and in the lawn area, I'm guessing those will get taken care of and removed, but if they wanted to keep them, we would suggest no. They are an invasive tree that's starting to crop up in the backyard. So with that, I would recommend approval of the amendment.
Okay, thank you. Questions from the commissioners? Mark?
No remarks.
John?
Yeah, just to follow up on what Amy was saying about the lawn area. The lawn is kind of a mess right now, and I just would like to know what the plan is for the lawn. Is it gonna be rehabilitated, or is it just gonna be left naturalized on its own? Are you planning to put down loam and overseed? I don't see any mention of that here. That's a question.
I think establishing what was, the original order would say what was disturbed had to be replaced with conservation mixed grass seed. Steve, who is the man at the site, can probably answer this better than myself.
We
Steve?
can't hear you, Steve.
Yeah, Steve, you there? If you're on the phone, press #6,
He's not, he's on the computer.
*6 rather.
He's on the computer, but his microphone isn't working.
Can't hear you.
Unfortunately, I think the owners are stuck by the original order, which just says, I believe it's existing disturbed lawn areas have to be reseeded with a conservation mixed grass seed. So I haven't recently been on the site, but I think that would be their intention, is just putting the grass back where it was, with the exception of the places that Phil's plan has pointed out with the native species.
Phil Cheney, landscape designer, chiming in here. I believe the intent of the quirks is just to restore the lawn as it was and continue to maintain it according to the original order. I'm not sure the exact condition that it's in now, but that's, what's happened during the course of the construction. Resume mowing and caring for it as before.
It says any reseeding is to be with a native grass seed mix, no fertilizers or chemicals, herbicides, pesticides, anything like that within 100 feet. So that's what the old order says.
Okay. Thank you.
Is it, John? Stan?
I have no questions.
Brad?
No questions?
Jim?
No questions.
Alan?
No questions.
I had two questions. One, Dan, you mentioned that they were going to be reducing the existing wall. Is that the wooden retaining wall that's along at the toe of the beach? Or the top of the beach?
No, it's the one right at the patio where they're looking to change the patio from brick to bluestone. It's right maybe 10 feet off the house. It's right up.
Oh, okay.
So-
So that's adjacent to right where the existing outside shower is that right?
Correct, right in front of that. There's a small wall there,
Okay,
but they want to do that even more.
all right. The other thing I noticed that I just mentioned, and it just creates a paradox in my mind, is, so you're going to be extending the deck for 4 feet, and ordinarily what we see is that those deck extensions go out over existing lawn. In this case, you're going out over existing plantings. And is there any thought to replacing those plantings themselves? It's not part of your mitigation calculations, is that right?
Correct. I had because they weren't it wasn't a native planting area, I just took what the size of the deck was and doubled that, the new deck. So I didn't take into effect whether it was going over lawn or planted area. But as for, taking that same, whatever it is, 4 or 5 feet of planting area and moving that out from the deck, I don't think that would be an issue, but maybe Phil could enlighten us on that also, if he's still with us.
It's Phil Cheney here, and I don't believe there's any plans on replanting that area now, whether it be ornamentals or lawn. I think it's probably the same in the commission's eye.
Any concerns on that from anybody? One way or the other? No? Okay. All right, good. In that case, I have no other comments. So are there any comments from abutters? Anyone else in the audience? All right, hearing none. Can we have a motion on this, please?
I'll move to approve the request for amending the order of conditions for 11 Prince Charles Drive.
A second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Good. Unanimous then. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
The next order on the agenda is Daniel and Laura Dubin, 27 Walker Woods Drive, map 94, parcel A56. Notice of intent for a proposal sewer access path and kayak rack.
Mr. Chairman, they've requested to withdraw the application.
Okay. We don't need a motion to accept that, or
You
do
do.
we? So can we have a motion?
It would make it cleaner.
Can we have a motion to accept the withdrawal for the notice of intent?
So moved.
And a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Mr. Chairman?
Sorry.
Yeah, are they requesting to remove it without prejudice or with prejudice?
They said without,
Okay,
I've been told it doesn't, in terms of, we just let them withdraw, it's kind of de facto
well,
without
what I was
prejudice.
just saying is that we should just reference that in the motion.
Sure.
So the motion should, I'd like to amend the motion by saying that we would allow them to withdraw without prejudice.
Accept
Accept
the
the
proposed amendments.
All in favor again?
Aye.
All opposed? Good, thank you. Next item on the agenda is a notice of intent for Michael and Mary Beth Donovan, 5 Trinity Cove, for the removal of a portion of an existing dwelling and patio, construction of an addition and deck, and associated plantings.
In the future, you can scan them. Is that
Hi, good evening. I'm Stephanie Sequin with Ryder and Wilcox. I'm representing Mike and Mary Beth Donovan, who are here with us this evening. They're the owners of the property at 5 Trinity Cove. It's on a little side street located off Lower County Road. It's a 10,314 square foot lot overlooking the Herring River to the east. The edge of the river is defined as the annual mean high water mark, which in this location approximately follows the edge of the salt marsh that abuts the river. So we're showing the inner riparian zone, which is 100 feet from the edge of the river, is the same as the 100-foot buffer to the salt marsh, and then the outer riparian portion of the riverfront goes 100 feet beyond that. The property also falls within land subject to coastal storm flowage. Part of the lot is in the AE elevation 13 zone, and the other part of the lot is in the AE elevation 12 zone. The ground level, the existing grade level, is anywhere between 8 and 10 feet, so this is well below the 100-year flood elevation. Presently, there's an existing single-story dwelling with attached garage, a patio, shell driveway, and walkways. Nearly the entire site is within the 200-foot riverfront area. Just a very small part of the site is within the 100-foot buffer to the marsh and the inner riparian zone. And a very small portion of the existing hardscaping, the patio and stepping stones, is also within the 100-foot buffer to the salt marsh. The property itself is separated from the actual resource area, the river and the salt marsh, by an abutting property. There's an expansive lawn that looks like it's part of this property, but it's another piece of property. So what's being proposed with this application is to remove the seaward side of the existing building and replace it with a new 2-story addition, which the addition will be elevated so that the first floor is a foot above the flood elevation in order to be in compliance with the FEMA regulations for construction in the flood zone. There will also be a deck on the water side of the building, and from the deck a few steps down will be a patio. The proposed addition and patio are located outside of the 100-foot buffer to the marsh and outside of the inner riparian zone. Just a very small portion of the proposed deck is within the 100-foot buffer to the marsh and the inner riparian zone, but the proposed deck is a few feet further away from the resource area than the existing patio, and is also in a slightly smaller footprint than the existing patio. They're also proposing to renovate the back portion of the building that's going to remain. They'll re-side it, replace doors and windows, change the roof line a little bit, but not adding a second story to that back part. They're also going to replace the existing shed that is there in the southwest corner of the property, remove the existing shed and replace it with a larger shed. The existing, there's a shell parking area that will be removed, and the existing driveway will be replaced with just what's referred to as a ribbon driveway, so 2 strips of cobblestone with grass in between. I think that's it as far as what's being proposed. I provided a breakdown of existing and proposed coverage within the 100-foot buffer to the salt marsh and inner riparian zone versus what's existing and proposed in the outer riparian zone. So within the inner riparian zone, we're actually reducing the coverage by 97 square feet. In the outer riparian zone, there's an increase of 557 square feet for a net increase on the site within jurisdiction of 460 square feet. So at 2-to-1 mitigation, that would require 920 square feet of mitigation plantings. We've submitted a proposed mitigation plan that was prepared by O'Leary Landscaping, and they are showing 1,055 square feet of mitigation planting, so it's in excess of the 2-to-1 that's required. There's, as Amy pointed out in her staff comments, there's not a whole lot of opportunity for mitigation here. So they did the best that they could. Part of the difficulty, normally, we know you like to see the mitigation plantings start at as close as possible to the resource area and then working out toward the proposed or the building area. In this case, because the seaward side of our property abuts that existing lawn, it just didn't seem to make sense to put the mitigation plantings up against that existing lawn, and that's why they're proposed. If you look on the mitigation plan, they're actually proposed up adjacent to the proposed deck, and then beyond that will remain grass area, so it will blend in with the grass on the adjoining property. I've provided construction notes on the site plan and also in the project narrative. I've specified that a fabric silt fence will be installed along the limit of work. It's kind of hard to see on the drawing because I've basically followed the lot line. That's where the limit of work will be. It's a very tight workspace, so that silt fence will be installed prior to construction and will remain until the work is completed. A dumpster will be provided on site and will be provided with a lid or some other cover to prevent wind-blown debris. All excavated material and all demolition material will be placed directly into trucks for removal from the site. There won't be any stockpiling of material on the site, again, just because there's not a whole lot of room to do that. And upon completion of construction, the disturbed areas will be restored in accordance with the approved planting plan. And there's actually 2 plans that were provided. One that has the details for the mitigation plantings, and then another one that has the specifications for the ornamental plantings that are proposed around the building. I think that's all I have at this point, and I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Amy?
Sure. Really briefly, the closest proposed hardscape to the wetland itself right now is 93 feet away. It's proposed to be 97, so they are pulling back a little bit, even though they are expanding in the outside the 100-foot wetland buffer, but inside the 100 to 200-foot riverfront area. As Stephanie said, mitigation is a little tough on this lot in order to, there's no way to do a contiguous mitigation with the resource area because there's another property seaward of it that has lawn that's not their property before you hit the salt marsh. So When we went out to the site, I said, what's there pretty much right now is, it's pretty bare ground, a little bit of Cape Cod lawn. There's 2 pitch pines and 1 holly tree that are very close to the house. But in terms of habitat or anything else like that, or a lot of species diversity, there's not much there. So that was where the opportunity came in to create some fruiting and flowering items that would be attractive to pollinators and small mammals and create more species diversity. So those are the mitigation planting plan that you see. I have 1 or 2 small suggestions there, nothing that I can't talk to Sean and you folks about. There's 1 or 2 on there that, although that they are native plants, they tend to like shadier, less salty exposed areas. They like to be closer to freshwater bodies, shadier, damper. Even with irrigation, I think they might have a bit of a problem. So I have some suggestions on switch outs, and that would be to switch out the inkberry and the sheep laurel with other things like viburnum, indigo, sweet fern. If this goes forward tonight, I'm happy to work with you on that. But I mean, I'll keep it fairly short and sweet. The Rivers Act states on a lot like this where it's pre-developed, pre-96, which this was, and it's in the outer riparian, which is in the 1 to 200, they're not causing more damage to the riverfront area. I would say that there's a slight enhancement in terms of the plantings that they are proposing here. We did meet with the Donovans on site early on, Stephanie and I, and iterated about the no chemical application on the property, which is no fertilizers, pesticides, herbicides, especially being that close to the river, water quality is very important. So, with that, I think that'll be it for me, and I'm recommending approval.
Okay, good, thank you. Comments from the commissioners? Mark?
No remarks.
John?
No remarks.
Stan?
No remarks.
I had a couple of questions. There's a term here, elevate existing maple. What do you mean by elevate? You just prune it up?
I think that's, removing some of the lower branches. Is that what would you?
Yeah, we,
Yeah, some,
go ahead.
yeah, some of them right now go into the driveway areas, like driving in, some of the lower branches like come right in.
Oh,
So that-
okay.
So we're just trying to take some of those off so that you can drive in without.
Without scratching a car? Yeah, okay. And then there's 3 references on here to irrigated lawn. Is there irrigation on the lot now?
There's not.
There's not, because I don't think we would approve irrigation within the 100 anyhow.
That, the commission, from my understanding, has been a little bit more lenient about irrigation, and obviously not so much about any type of chemical application. In the past, we don't usually see it in the 0 to 50 foot, any type of permanent irrigation, but outside the 50 foot, which this definitely is, I think you have some leeway to grant it. I do think, in an exposed location like this, that in order for any plants to survive, you're gonna need it. So as long as there's not the chemical additives or even organic fertilizers, I don't see the harm in irrigation this far, about 100 feet away from the resource.
Do you have any sway with your neighbors in front of you there?
I'm sorry?
Are you good friends with your neighbors in front of you?
Yes.
Can you convince them to quit using fertilizer on that?
I don't know if I'm that good.
Horrible, horrible what they're dumping on that, but that be as it may. I have no other comments. Brad?
Yeah, just a very good plan, by the way, but the one comment is on the irrigation, and I think we haven't typically been supportive of putting in new irrigation systems in the 52 and 100. We haven't had a problem with people maintaining existing systems. So this one, it's kind of on the margin. My concern, I guess, is when you put in irrigation, landscaping companies often will do as they see fit and maintain the lawn, fertilize the lawn, and they may not be aware that there is a restriction against using fertilizers. So a little concerned about new irrigation systems at this location.
The only part that's within the 100-foot buffer to the resource area is you know, there will be plantings here in front of the deck, and then we're just talking about a really narrow strip. Everything else is still in your jurisdiction, but outside the 100-foot buffer to the marsh, for what that's worth.
Yep. Yeah, and I think Amy's comment is good about, you know, the plantings along that area. It's the lawn I'm concerned about, from the 100-foot to the edge of the property. So that's an area that, you know, a little concerned about the potential to have future landscaping companies just go ahead and put fertilizer.
If I may, I'm.
Do you mind coming up to the mic, Mr. Donovan? Just, thank you.
We're not gonna, the landscaping company's gonna put everything in, but then I'm gonna cut my own grass and so on.
Okay.
It's a small lot, I'm not gonna hire someone in. I don't know if some of you have been there, sorry, today. There's not much there.
Yeah.
So it's not gonna be an issue with the landscape company coming in to do those things.
Okay. It's deceiving because the other property is.
Yeah, very much so, yeah.
Yeah, okay, thank you for that.
No other comments?
Al?
No comment, I think it looks great, good luck.
Okay, thank you, good. Ask if any, it doesn't look like anybody else is on, so I assume there's no abutters that are, would like to comment on this. All right, so can we have a motion on this?
I'll move to approve, the notice of intent for 5 Trinity Cove.
I'll second it.
Is there any comment on the motion? Nope. Okay, it's been seconded. All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Good.
Great, thank you.
Thank you.
So this will be in 2 weeks when you write the orders?
The orders will be, yeah, issued in 2 weeks,
Okay.
but they can go ahead and, you know, apply for your building permits or whatever else you have to do ahead of time. Oh, I meant to mention, it's not a conservation thing, but while I still have you, the shed, because the shed's getting bigger and you're within setbacks, you're aware of zoning board of
Don't-
appeals?
yes, you said
Okay.
that, yeah.
Plus, I figured for the house anyways, with the remodel, you're gonna have to.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah,
But
thanks.
yeah, you can start that process if that's what you were wondering.
Okay, great.
Okay?
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. All right, moving on, we have orders of conditions. First one is for Francis Surratt, 11 Harbor Way, proposal to eliminate the proposed bulkhead, rearrange and adjust the scope of the plantings.
So really, it's just the amended conditions here. I did change, I realized the last one didn't have the most recent extension date on here, so the dates are correct. It will expire on 3/1/24. They did change the plan to take the plantings away from the neighbor's access to the driveway. If there's any questions, let me know.
Anyone have any comments, changes, concerns?
I had none for that one.
Can we have a motion? Do you want more time to look at that, John, or anybody?
No, I don't think I have more time.
I looked at it and I had no comments on it at all, Amy. So can we have a motion on,
Okay. I'll move that we approve the order of conditions for the property located at 11 Harbor Way, map 1, parcel H3.
we have a second?
Second?
All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Okay, unanimous. Next item is an order of conditions for 17 Indigo Lane, map 80, parcel D112 for proposed one-bedroom dwelling on a vacant lot. Anyone have any comments on that?
I think, let's see, number 12, special condition on the in lieu fee. This fee is calculated by multiplying the square feet of the new structure approved by 4. Is that the best way to say it, or do we want to say,
Disturbance in the resource area, or the amount of disturbance?
Yeah, I'm not sure. I mean, I know it makes sense what's said there. I just don't know if it's.
Yeah, I can change the wording a little bit.
It's more than just the structure, isn't it?
No, we actually are gonna talk about it later tonight, because the Attorney General did approve it. Hold on one second. It's calculated, I can actually just take it right per the regs if we do that. In lieu fees may be calculated, multiply the total area of required mitigation calculated for the project by 4 square feet. So if they had 1,000 square, it is structure, because we require mitigation for structure.
By $4.
$4.
$4.
$4, okay.
Yeah, I think that might be a little clearer.
I can,
Get
if
the
we
units
adopt the language, I'll include
out.
that. Okay,
Okay, good.
That's all I had.
makes sense.
Any other comments? Motion on that?
I'll move to approve the order of conditions for 17 Indigo.
Second?
Second?
Second, great. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Okay, thank you. Next is an order of conditions for 5 Fiddler's Landing, map 6, parcel A1-8 for a demo and replace a single-family dwelling and making site improvements. I did have one comment on item 14 on this, Amy, which has implementation of the mitigation planning plan shall start the same or next growing season as start of work on the house. I guess as I read that, I was thinking that it should be the same or next growing season at the end of work on the house.
In certain cases, things could take place simultaneously, and I think this is one of those ones. I actually did speak with the contractor about that, that the landscaping can get done really either fall or spring, but at the same time that activity is happening on the house, because all the mitigation here is on the bank or in the marsh.
Seemed like a small lot as far as,
They said they could do it.
they said they can do it. Okay,
Yeah.
great.
Normally, I would, normally where, you know, if you're tearing up a lot, you would want to do it towards the end.
Mm.
But in this case, I think they can separate it, and they said they could.
Okay, all right, good. Thanks for checking that. You're way ahead of us as usual on this stuff.
Well, they normally, I mean, what happens is oftentimes you build, and then the planting for everybody is sometimes an afterthought, you know? So we want to make sure by putting a condition in like that, it stays towards the forefront, and you're not wanting a certificate of compliance, but your plantings aren't quite done yet, or they just got installed, so.
Yeah, all right. Good. Any other comments on this? On 5 Fiddler's Landing, then.
Okay, I'll make a motion to approve the order of conditions for 5 Fiddler's Landing, map 6, parcel A1-8.
Have a second?
I'll second it.
All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Okay. Next is an order of conditions for 7 Prince Charles Drive, map 110, partial S27.
As an aside, they're removing that shed this week. They asked if they could do it before the order came out, and I said, yes. You can move the shed.
Good. And did we previously approve this?
We approved an addition to above the garage,
Oh, okay, so this
That
just
bumped
is
out a
strictly
little bit.
dealing with the patio and the shed and,
correct.
okay. Question though, so we give them an expiration date of 2024 on this. Is that necessary?
That's the permit life that I mean, even though we said in the special conditions it has to be done by November 1st. So it just means that, I mean, if he does the work this fall, he can apply for a certificate of compliance and just close it out.
All right.
That's just.
The work has to be done by,
Yeah.
essentially by November 1st.
Yeah, the work has to be done, but the permit would be valid, but if they did the work after, it would be in violation of the conditions, so.
Yeah.
let me worry about that.
Any other comments?
Yeah, I've got one. I'm not sure if this is gonna have a great deal of bearing on anything, but the discussion we had earlier regarding the other property we spoke about. I mean, I can see the direct correlation between these two projects. And the results of the findings here are radically different. And I'm concerned about that, because very often we hear the term consistency, and there's a question here. And the project I'm speaking about was over on Seymour's Pond. Is there any other information available on that to elaborate so everybody can understand?
Sure, I did bring the file, so that's the Bosky project on Seymour Pond, where they had a deck really immediately right on the water. They had approval for one, but they had put in a second piece of it, and after several discussions, the commission agreed to they were to remove a portion of walkway, but they were allowed to keep the deck as it was there, which is the two sections of it, provided they did a substantially greater amount of mitigation than the 3-to-1 or something would have required.
Is the deck in the 50?
Yes. So I understand,
Virtually on the edge of the water.
I understand your point.
Step off the deck and you're in the pond.
That was in 2019. I didn't go back and read the minutes, but the mitigation, the deck expansion was about 200 square feet, more than what they mitigated with 2,250 square feet, 2,250 square feet. So I think,
10X.
yeah. So that, I didn't go back to the minutes or anything, but that may have had something to do with it.
There was a lengthy discussion about it.
Oh, yeah.
And a lot of back and forth.
And it wasn't a unanimous decision, I remember that.
No, I know that.
I mean, I have the plan here if you wanted to see it, to see that particular plan, but essentially, if I give it to you, here's the pond. This platform was here, it was this section of the platform that wasn't previously on any plan, so it was this little piece. I should have did all that. So, anybody want to see this?
So, I understand Mark's point,
Absolutely.
but at this point, you've already voted to approve to do what we voted to do for this project. So is there anything, I mean, if we all of a sudden had a change of heart, what?
Well, the hearing's
is
not,
there
the
a-
hearing's not closed, because that's what we're doing, when we issue the order, as the hearing closes.
So we could decide to drastically alter,
I wouldn't do it without Mr. Posh present. If you were inclined to change your thoughts, I would invite him to the next meeting, and we can discuss further.
I'm not
Or-
opposing that, by the way.
No, but I'm just saying, you could. We have not closed the hearing on this.
Yeah, I guess without knowing the discussion that we had on the Seymour Pond property, that, I mean, I remember what we discussed on this one in particular, and there was an after the fact, similar to the other one, I suspect, Seymour Pond, but, I think we were fairly firm in our decision as far as new structure in the 50 on this one. And again, as council has told us, decisions that we've made in the past are not necessarily, or are not precedent for anything we do in the future.
Well, that may be a remark from council, but it doesn't make it right.
Understood.
And my recommendation would be for the commissioners to review the minutes of the meeting. And I would like to see this come back to the next meeting and give the applicant the opportunity to resubmit and maybe revise the proposal, because I think there's a possibility that this could be slightly different. In fairness to them, I think it's the right thing to do.
want to make a motion to that effect, Mark?
If I don't have to say that again.
Can you capture that as a motion?
I would say, don't close the hearing. You'd like to continue this for discussion with the applicant at the next Conservation Commission meeting.
In addition to making the minutes available.
I will make those available.
to-
That doesn't have to be in the motion, but I'll put it
Okay.
in your Dropbox. I'll put them in.
Yes,
Or the date of the recording and the link to it. You can watch it.
that's fine.
So I think we just need a motion to
So
continue
moved.
the hearing for,
Continue this, yeah.
for this particular piece of property at St. Prince Charles Drive.
So moved.
And a second?
I'll second it.
Second. All in favor?
Discussion, please?
Yes.
Yeah, so I think that this is highly irregular. I haven't seen this before. We've had an order, and we've decided to change the project, or attempt to change the project. So, have you come across this in your time with the Harwich Conservation Commission? I haven't seen it.
They could always, so there's two ways you can handle it this way, because we haven't closed it. You don't have to issue it. I mean, I'm already letting him move the shed, because they want to. You could do it this way, invite them to come back and kind of informally have discussion, or you can issue the order and they can come back and wish to amend to allow the structure, at which point, I mean, in the meantime, I would give you, it's good information for all of us anyway to revisit that other case as it pertains to anything. But those are the two ways you can handle it. It is a little irregular, but you haven't closed.
Did you vote against it, Mark?
Would I vote against the order?
This project?
I don't remember if I did or not.
I don't have my notes.
Yeah, I mean, my recollection was it was unanimously approved.
Right, so,
I thought so.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and
I-
I think I agree with you that if these issues were to come up, they should have come up before we voted on the project at the hearing, and if we wanted to look into some other issues, we should have, instead of voting on the project, we should have continued the hearing at that point. To do it at the point now where we've actually got an order of conditions that we're voting on, I would think it's highly irregular.
So, may I speak? Because I agree with the previous two comments. I am not in favor of reopening this. And there's two kinds of consistency here. One is the consistency you're talking about, and I understand your point. The other is the consistency associated with making a decision and sticking with it. And I'm very concerned about reopening this thing and creating doubt about whether it was the right thing to do. I think we made the right decision, and I really, I understand that maybe 2 or 3 years ago, we made a decision that some of us might, on re-examining, think it was the wrong decision, but I don't think that's a reason to revise this decision. So I'm not in favor.
Oh, and if I'm sorry, standing up.
No, and I agree with your comment, because I can think of a couple of decisions I've made over the last 4 years that if I had it to do over again, they would have been different, but I did what I did at the time.
Right.
And that's what I thought was right at the time, so I agree with you on that. You can't keep revisiting the decisions that were made.
And they have the right to appeal or to ask to amend would be if there was that sentiment, they could come back on their own volition and ask that.
I mean, also, the membership on this commission keeps changing. And so as the membership changes, there are different ideas, different concepts, different views brought in. We're all appointed by the Board of Selectmen. So therefore, to some extent, the Board of Selectmen are endorsing the fact that we need to continually refresh the way we look at these issues.
I guess based on the fact that they do have the right to come back and request or submit an appeal to our denial, then, that door is never closed. So to open it voluntarily for them, I think, is not necessarily the right approach from my perspective either. If they want to initiate that, fine, but for us to do it and second guess our decisions on these, I'm necessarily in favor of that, given the comments.
But I guess Mark did make a motion, so, and it's been seconded, so we do have to vote on that
Yep.
motion.
Sure, yep, it was just under discussion.
Right.
So, with respect to the motion, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All, 2? All opposed? Aye. 5 opposed, 2 in favor.
So the motion failed, so we need a new motion.
So I'll make a motion to approve the order of conditions for. Which one is it?
7 Prince Charles.
7 Prince Charles Drive, map 110, parcel S27.
Second,
Second.
all in favor?
Aye.
Abstain.
All opposed?
Abstain.
Opposed.
1 opposed and 1 abstention.
5, 1, 1. Okay.
All right. Next item on the agenda is the order of conditions for 28 Wawatasi Road, map 6, parcel F1-12.
Amy, is there any timeline on how quick we have to issue this order?
Yes, by next, by Tuesday.
Okay, all right. There's a lot going on here, and it's a real credit to what Amy does with denials.
No question.
I mean, you should get overtime pay for denials. It's a
I
lot.
learned a lot. I actually, as much as I don't enjoy it, I get a lot out of it. I learn a lot every time I do them.
Yeah, you gotta be on your toes.
As you notice, this one evolved fairly
Right.
consistently over the past week.
I almost felt like I needed more time, but I don't think that we should hold up submitting this, so I've got a few comments.
Why don't you start us off then, Brad?
Want me to start?
Yeah, please.
Okay, number 5, findings of facts. Is the Waterways Commission, is it advisory on shellfish issues or just navigation?
It's advisory period. They have no regulatory.
Right, but in terms of shellfish, I don't believe we ever draw advice from them on shellfish, that we go to the natural resource.
Yeah,
department.
Heinz normally weighs in. I don't know if that's their expertise.
Well, yeah, but I don't think they give us advice on that.
I could just say, how about this, to make it easy? The Waterways Committee is an advisory board to the HCC, period.
Yep, or leave navigation, it's up to you folks. I don't think shellfish is appropriate.
Well, is John and Heinz, are they advisory to this commission?
They're staff advisors, yes.
Yeah, so, I mean, you could say that the WWC Harbor Master and National Resource Director are advisory to the HCC.
Okay.
Yep. Yes, standalone, the waterways, I don't think is.
Well, technically, John Rendon does have authority on navigation
Yep.
when it comes down to it. Like, he has regulatory ability.
But he's still advisory to us.
He's still,
I mean, we don't enforce his decisions.
right. And sometimes they're separate than ours.
Yeah, I think Ernie's comment to roll them into the same sentence makes sense.
Okay, I can fix that.
And then, number 10, on the BSC survey, I know you're trying to be concise here, but I wonder, so what happened with the survey was they attempted 35 plots, 10 they couldn't execute because the salt marsh was in the way.
Right.
And so, in effect, they sampled 25 plots and found the same, number of clams, which resulted in a very high frequency of occurrence. I don't know if you need to put in the frequency of occurrence there or not, but you could just mention that 35 plots were attempted and 10 were executed because salt marsh was in the way. And then
I
that's.
could just say samples were not taken in the marsh.
Yep, something like that. And then also, they found a large number of oysters on the marsh fringe that did not come on survey plots. I thought that was a pretty important finding of the survey.
I thought I put there was shell, because that's what they said was shell.
You put clumps of rib mussels, well, the first survey, so there was 2 surveys. The first one is in number 7.
Yeah.
And you do mention the oyster shells. In the second survey, they found, they wrote down many live oysters. That was the word they used. but they didn't find them in the plots. So lots of oysters were present, they didn't come up in the plots. And if you want, I can send you, clearer text on this, Amy.
So I'd just like to comment on this particular one as well, because I think that we struggled with this as a committee in interpreting these results and getting it straight that the sample plots were a very small percentage of the survey area, and I'm concerned that if this language is the only language that some judge somewhere who's not at all familiar with these things won't know how to interpret that. So I think that something referring to frequency of occurrence or
Okay.
establishing the difference between the sample area and the survey area, making it clear that there are a lot, clear numerically somehow, so that this particular point can't be finessed by someone arguing this
Okay.
in court. I think there needs to be better language about that.
I can look at it and correct it and
I
then
don't-
send it out to you.
Yeah,
If you could just say what the total area was that contained the survey plots, and say that the survey plots were only whatever it was, 1 or 2% of the, mixing words here, but that the sample plots were only whatever percentage they were of the total survey area, to make it clear that one would expect a lot more shellfish. in the
Sure,
entire
I understand what you're saying, yep.
Yep. A key point that I get from this is that if you take the actual plots, they sampled 25, 52% contain shellfish. That's a high frequency of occurrence. So if you were to sample, that is a very small sample size for whatever reason, but if they sampled more, they would have found a lot of shellfish. And so I think, if you don't mind,
Yeah, I can retool that and
I-
send that piece around.
I think the key thing is to add the frequency of occurrence, and maybe add
Wrote that
the
down.
observation from the consultant of many shellfish.
Mm-hmm.
Many oysters. All right, and again, I wish I spent more time on this, but let's see. 28, findings of facts. Commissioner Chase emailed the Conservation Administrator with a presentation entitled Docks and Pier Impacts. Does anyone mind, I put that together as a rebuttal to comments in Shoreline Construction's letter from August 10th, 2021, that in my view had a lot of inaccurate statements. Is it suitable for me to put in a presentation entitled Docks and Pier Impacts as a rebuttal to comments made in the August 10th, 2021 letter?
Attorney Wall was pretty adamant that couldn't be considered as part of our deliberations.
The presentation wasn't made, but the contents were discussed, though. That's why I added
He
it.
objected to it.
Yeah.
It still exists.
That's why I put it in.
Granted, but he said that under whatever the law was, by not giving it out.
Policy.
What?
It's a policy, it's not a regulation.
It's
about
not,
the
you
time.
don't have to provide advanced notification to the audience or to all the parties of, that's a material part of the presentation.
I mean, it's a policy. It's not a regulation. And we did give them the option to continue if they wanted to have more time to look at that, because it was, and they said no.
Oh, well, that's a good point then. Should we add that?
I'll put, when it gets appealed, that'll be part of
Yeah,
the,
all right.
if it comes up that, hey, they didn't have a lot of time to review it, I happily go on record and say it was offered a continuation to review it.
So not to digress from your point you were
Yeah.
trying to make, though, Brad, I mean.
Yeah, just I'd like to.
What number is that, Brad?
28.
Yeah, 27 says this letter was submitted.
Yep.
And so that's got standing. I felt the letter frankly had numerous inaccurate statements, and so.
How about in response to that letter?
That's fine, yeah, that's great.
Not as a rebuttal, but in response to.
Okay,
In response to the field report, right?
yep,
That's what you're referring to?
that's perfect. And that's as far as I got, so I'll back off and go ahead and read while others.
The rest is just, I mean, you said the chapters and verses of things that you wanted me to include, so I did so to the best of my ability by bringing in,
One typo in,
yeah,
where you discuss 310 CMR 1034,
mm-hmm,
Part A,
mm-hmm.
by the Conservation
Oh.
Commission of, it says the department, it should be for. No, yes, or the department, I'm sorry.
Four,
By the Conservation Commission or the
Yep.
department.
got it.
And Amy, in the last paragraph under that section, where we talk about the HCC also found that the proposed project will have an adverse impact to land containing shellfish, yada, 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 and then talk about alteration of water circulation, relief elevation, and distribution of sediment grain size. I honestly don't remember that.
Well, we said it was gonna
Things
have an
like-
adverse impact to land containing shellfish.
Yes.
We have to say how, we didn't go into the performance standards, if you will, which is what these are, so you
Yeah.
can't,
I'd be hard pressed if someone asked me how that project would change water circulation or relief elevation.
See, to me, that fits in with my discussions on scouring. So, scouring was discussed at multiple hearings. So
Well, then-
it's up to Amy if you want to connect the performance standards, as Ernie's suggesting. But to me, scouring does affect those features of
Yeah.
shellfish habitat.
Yeah. I wonder if we can put it in, that's just our summary. Oh. Yeah, I mean, that's, essentially, that's the,
I think I know how to word it.
well, you can play with it if you like. I can just say,
I'm gonna add the cause scour in there.
Are we
Okay.
done with that point? 'Cause
yeah, I guess so. You all set with that? Okay.
So, minor typo, but also a question under denial under Harwich Water Dependent Structures bylaw. The second paragraph is 11030 as opposed to 3. There's a-
Sorry, where are you? Water
The
dependent?
second paragraph, what page is this? This is page 5-8, denial under the
Okay,
Harwich Water Dependent Structures, referring to 110.3, but instead of a right
Oh.
parent, there's a 0.
yep,
But my
Got it.
other sort of bigger deal about this is that these are definitions, not performance standards, except in, I think it's the first one, 3B8, that the definition contains a standard, which is a little strange, and the other one, no, it's the wildlife habitat, I'm sorry, it's 310-2A fisheries and 310-2A wildlife habitat. The wildlife habitat, I believe, if I remember right, contains some kind of performance standard in the definition, but the fisheries does not. And so I'm just questioning how you deny under a definition.
so I think what we'll do, I'm just gonna, HCC also denies the project under the Harwich Wetlands Protection Bylaw for fish, as it will have an adverse impact to fisheries and wildlife habitat. Maybe leave out the citation. 'Cause we talked about that, though. Because you're right, it's a definition. I don't think it has any substance to that. I think I'd want to ask council about that and see if if we should leave that in or not.
Okay.
I see,
Makes sense to me.
I see the merit, like leaving it in and just letting it get struck later potentially, or rewording it somehow, but I can ask council.
Okay.
Do you generally have council review these denial letters?
I usually ask them to take a quick glance beforehand.
Any other comments on these?
I don't have any others.
Anybody else? So, are you comfortable with making a motion to approve this then? Can we have a motion on the order of conditions for 28 Wawatesi Road?
I'll move to approve the order of conditions for 28 Wawatesi Road.
Second?
Can I make a comment before we
Sure,
second?
yeah.
Can we add, like, with the revisions that Amy was going to make?
Sure, but
Yeah,
what's the second?
Okay, I'll second, okay, I'll second it.
Second? Comments?
With aforementioned revisions.
With aforementioned revisions too.
Right, I accept the amendment.
And you've seconded the, all in favor?
Aye.
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 All opposed?
I abstain.
And I abstain.
2 abstains. Okay.
Oh, that's right, so 4, 1
Thank you.
opposed, 2 abstentions. Okay, got it.
Next item on the agenda is the discussion and possible vote. First item is discussion of the current and proposed future practices regarding the town-owned bogs at 374 Main Street, currently leased by the Main Street Cranberry Company. Leo is here. Welcome.
Thank you all for having me. This is an update, basically, of the situation. I want to kind of keep coming before you so we can keep this moving forward. It's my intentions. I'll give you a little bit of history for those members that are new on the board, or if anybody's listening at home. I am the current leaseholder. I've had the property, care and custody of the property for the last 20 years. I was scheduled to be out this November. And the town, after approaching the town and some of the town fathers with an idea that I had of continuing the lease, they decided to give themselves and myself 1 year extension to the lease. So I am going to be out of the property next November. However, I am going to take this year and try to make a proposal to the town as to the future use of this particular piece of property. I sent out, I guess, Amy, I don't know if you passed it around or not,
When did you send it?
the day that you asked me for it, like a couple hours later. I ran in and did it.
Shoot, I didn't. I'm happy to go make a few copies, I'm sorry.
Yeah. I think that's the only one I got, but I can look it up on my phone.
I'll do it back.
Yeah, I ran in and did it right away.
I'm sorry.
That's okay. The outline that I'm going to give you is basically that Amy's going to print off for you, and I apologize. Her and I have been in discussion with it, and I did send it to her, but I guess she hadn't get a chance to print it off or send it to you guys. But anyhow, it's just basically an outline of what I want to speak about tonight. There are 3 facets to this moving forward, and the 3 facets are very distinct and different. They have a lot to do with each other, but they are 3 really different entities. I'm going to start off with first is the school. I've decided to join with the Cape Cod Tech School right here in Harwich. And what we're proposing to do is build an agricultural education center on the property. Now, I use the term build. I don't mean that in regards to buildings. I mean that in regards to building programs. Immediately, I have entered a world that I knew nothing about. Chapter 74, Massachusetts General Law, Chapter 74, requires schools, especially, I believe, technical schools, that if they're going to enter into and create new programs, they need to get approved by the state to do that. And it's under, again, Mass General Law 74. In making that application, it's kind of a twofold situation. There's a deadline of October 1st in which the school has to show the state what their intentions are, and then if the state likes their intentions, they get the thumbs up to move forward and put together the actual business plan, which will include curriculum and include the whole, basically nuts and bolts of especially the use of this property, and also some of the stuff that they plan on doing and improvements that they're going to do at the tech school itself that may coordinate with that. Thank you, Amy. I'm going to pass out.
Thank you,
So
thank you.
I take this, please drop it like this. I won't spit on the thing. You can talk in it later.
Thank you.
Okay. In preparation for the October 1st deadline and putting together a proposal for the state, the school and I have joined together and hired a consultant/grant writer. I only say that because we're going to continue to use this gentleman's services, hopefully as things move forward. His job as a consultant was to put together a report so that the school and the people who actually put curriculum together could show the state and the world that the programs that they are going to, the new programs that they're going to create, are actually going to be a benefit, especially to the community here. In other words, we're not going to teach the kids to grow cranberries. Please understand that. With all due respect to the cranberry growers in the room, there's not an awful lot of future for young people to become cranberry growers. So far, we've gotten a really interesting report back, and I did not share it with the group for a couple of reasons. One is I feel that anything that I share with the board tonight is public record, and I particularly don't want a lot of this work out in the public because we just got it ourselves and we want to digest it and understand it. So, but I will tell you that he has discovered that the animal marine science education programs, which will fall under the application of agriculture and natural resource cluster. So that means in the state filing, there's a cluster that we're going after or looking at, and that is the agricultural natural resource cluster. Under that cluster or incorporated in with that cluster, it covers a multitude of areas, some of which I'm only going to talk about tonight. That doesn't mean that I'm going to preclude in the future to increase programs to include other things too. But just for example reasons only, we looked at things like, well, again, under the animal and marine science education programs, the students and careers in many cases required a post-secondary and even advanced degrees. So this document actually looked at, okay, if we educate kids at the tech school, where do they go from there? Do they go right into the workforce, or do they go to get a 2-year degree at a secondary education place like a college, Cape Cod Community College, to name one, or anywhere? Or do they have to go on to get a full bachelor's, master's, and this actually goes up to PhD. So there are, it's a pretty in-depth report. It also looks at the increase of specific jobs, especially, and again, for explanation and for just explaining this document, I'm only going to be focusing on one group, okay? And that's the veterinarian medicine, or animal health group of it. It actually shows that according to the government and according to the research that's being done, that those particular areas, those jobs are going to increase in some instances between 8 and 23% in the next 10 years. And it also breaks down to the numbers, and it also breaks down in areas too. So does that mean that we're going to have 23% more veterinarians in the Lower Cape region? No, the 23% means nationwide. So now we're looking at and discussing and looking at the impact of these educated students when they leave there here in the Lower Cape area. So once again, it's quite a bit of work that we're putting into it so far, and that we're going to be putting in a lot more as we move forward. The business plan, when it comes out, is going to use all the data that we're getting from this consultant and the programs that we anticipate of putting forward. And it also is going to incorporate, our hopes anyhow, for the future education aspects of it, to coordinate and join with some higher education facilities. I mentioned a couple in my notes here, just to, again, for reference purposes only. Things like Bridgewater State University, the Cape Cod Community College, and of course my friend that runs the Provincetown Center for Marine Studies up in Provincetown. So there'll be areas like that that we're going to be reaching out to, and hopefully as this moves forward, and not the first year too, by the way, people all have to understand this. There's a lot of work that's going to go and put this together to get it off the ground, and even if the town was to move forward and everything was to come together fine, we probably are not looking to literally doing classes on that property until probably the summer or late fall of 2022. So I'm looking at 5 years, and this document looks 10 years beyond that. It's really a commitment, and it's got a lot of growth, not only in areas of education, because I didn't even touch upon the things that I said before the last time I was here, forestry, land management, environmental science, nutrient load, and migration of nutrients through the soil. All these things are going to be incorporated as we move forward. But the first hurdle with the school aspect is to get the approval from the state under Chapter 74. That's block number one. That's what I've been working on mostly all summer. I'm working with the school, having various meetings. I apologize for not having them here this evening, but you know, the school's getting ready to open, and there's a lot for them to do. And once again, this is just an update and kind of keeping this ball rolling meeting. There's really nothing that we had prepared to give you that would have spurred some really good discussion between the board and certainly myself and the school at this time. So we just thought it was best to put the general idea out there and let you understand where we're at. Do you want me to go on, Mr. Chairman, to the next section, or do you want me to open up for questions in this particular category, which is the relationship between myself and the school?
I'd just hear some questions if anyone has any. Mark?
Do you have a projected timeline to have enough accumulated information to begin the unfolding?
October 1st. The document that's going to be submitted to the state for the Chapter 74 requirements is going to have quite a bit of information in it.
Okay, but the submittal is October 1st?
Yes.
So then there's a period to
Once,
approve?
it's very quickly, 3 weeks, they're telling me, and after 3 weeks, they'll either say, yes, go ahead and move forward, or no, forget it, it's not going to happen.
Okay. Thank you.
Yes?
So with that being said, by November 1st, we may know that this is not gonna go any further,
Pretty much.
this concept.
Well, with the school. I mean, that's not to say that yes.
May I, Mr. Chair, real quick? Just to kind of circle back as to like what the commission's role will be really quickly. So the commission will have the decision. It's not tonight, but this is all to have you make an informed decision about come November 2022, what's going to be going on with the property. So ideally, I mean, as Leo stated in other meetings before this even really came to play, you need to make a decision well enough ahead of time so whatever comes next is prepared for that. So that being said, I mean, as what we're seeing now is a potential third option for what to do with the property. The property is about 34 acres, under care and custody of conservation, approved at town meeting. I gave you that information, the deed and everything. So, I mean, options would be, and just for you to think about in the future, is Option one is to put this property back out for lease, and that would be to the general public,
I
which,
just
and,
want to let you know, Amy,
Yeah.
that's on the documents, the last section. Section
okay,
3
well,
is the
because
town.
I didn't see it, and I apologize, I just wanted to
No, I covered all
reincorporate that.
in this, and we can get to
Yep.
that. That's why, if you don't mind, Mr. Chairman, I just wanted to kind of follow this, go through the school situation.
That's fine.
And then we'll move on to the other two, and we're going to cover all of that.
So
Or I plan on
let's
covering
just
all of
focus on questions pertaining to what has been discussed here under the school. No?
I just got a few comments and questions. Mr. Kukunis mentioned first that there'll be no cranberries.
I didn't say that, sir. I said I do not intend to teach children how to grow cranberries.
All right.
That's not the position of the tech school, to graduate 15 cranberry growers every single year. Because it's the intention of the tech school to graduate 15 high school students, 15 to 25 high school students with some type of capability that they'll be able to get a job or go on for further education. And quite frankly, graduating 15 to 25 cranberry growers doesn't make sense, not only nationally, but certainly not locally.
But you made a comment that there's no young people coming up to be in the cranberry industry, and I find that false. I just talked today with the Cape Cod Cranberry Growers Association, Brian Wick, the executive director. He feels that the cranberry industry is still very viable, and there's a lot of youngsters that still want to go in that role. He also offered, he'll be sending Amy a letter, that he wants to have a workshop and present it to the board for the commission. It's called the Cranberry Workshop for Municipalities, because it's a nice way of segueing into what is out there, the misnomer about the industry, and also how viable the industry is. So I just want to put that out there.
I appreciate that very much, and if I may, Mr. Chairman, please understand that if out of these 15 or 20 students that do participate there, they will be having hands-on experience in that cranberry bog, and they will be learning virtually, without even realizing it, how to be cranberry growers. However, they're also going to be learning other things, like, as I mentioned, nutrients in soil and how it goes through soil, putting on water, taking off water, sprinkler systems. There's a whole other things that goes into the environmental aspect that it's the school's hope that that education will bring them further. It's not to say that no one would attend this, graduate, and certainly become a cranberry grower. I have to base my data for the Chapter 74 filings on what the U.S. Department of Education has for statistics out there, and I couldn't even find cranberry growers listed as a viable job in the entire country. So that's why I broke this into 3 sections. I'm talking about the school now and what we're trying to do with the school. So that's why it's, you know, what Leo Kukunis would like to see personally, and Mr. Hall, absolutely. I think it's, you know, I'm not bashing cranberry growers, but let's face facts, gentlemen and ladies. You know, we've had one of the largest, best cranberry bogs right here across from the tech school just got sold, and it's going to be taken out of production. How many more do we have in this town alone that have been taken out of production? So I'm sorry, I think if you really look at the statistics, I am going to stand by the fact that I do not feel it would be correct to sit here and try to sell you the fact that the tech school is going to try to graduate 15 to 25 new cranberry growers every year. That's all.
Stan?
Question, I think the missing thing is we don't have a detailed plan of what the school is planning to do in terms of a program. And like you said, part of that program may be associated with some cranberry
Oh, it's
growing
all going to be
activity.
associated with cranberry.
But that's what we're not seeing. We don't have the detail of that plan.
Right.
And that's what you're submitting to the state on October 1st.
That's
Is it
correct.
that much of a detailed plan by the school?
Well, we won't get into the use of the cranberry bog itself, but I'm hoping it's going to say that we're going to be using the land for that purpose, especially when we're talking about, you know.
Well, it must be including types of programs that are going, you know, specific programs that the school will be offering to the students.
That's correct.
Okay. And then the other question, part of the October 1st thing, so they don't need a commitment from the town in terms of the actual potential. There's a potential for a lease, but there's no commitment for a lease or use of that land.
That's correct.
For your October 1st.
We don't need it for October 1st, but we will need it for I would like to see it happen before the January, February at the
I
latest.
was concerned about the October 1st, that's the state
No.
thing. Okay, so
John?
those are my two questions.
Thank you. John, do you have a question?
Yeah, so, I really like your description of what you're attempting to do and the beginnings of this, but I guess my question is, you know, the puzzle for us is, assuming that all this goes forward, assuming you get the approval from the state and the town decides to go with that, right? It's those two steps anyway. Assuming all that happens, what is the near-term plan for managing that land? What, because you haven't said anything about that yet. I don't know if that's part of your presentation going forward, but you're not gonna have all of this in place, as you said a few minutes ago, maybe in the first year. It may take several years to spin this whole thing up. What's happening to the property while you're spinning it up?
I'm moving out. I've been given a year to move all my stuff out. So basically, right now, I am growing cranberries there. I am mowing it. We do have irrigation there. We are going to harvest cranberries this year. But between now and next November, my plans are to try to get all my personal property out of there. Now, in the meantime, though, between now and, let's say, well, say January, if the town decides to enter into some kind of an agreement with the tech school or myself or the nonprofit that I'll talk about next, then at that point, we'll begin a new land management program. And that will include things like the tech school coming in, if the tech school is involved in it, and we'll be doing some upgrades to the barn, especially if we're going to end up doing some animal husbandry and veterinarian classes there. There'll be upgrades in management to the bogs themselves, getting all the weeds out of there. The decision will have to be made by the executive board at that time, whether they want to remain certified organic or not, or whether they just want to become conventional growers. So all that stuff will come forward, you know, again, once the town and the school decides if they do want to move forward.
You just referred to an executive board. Who's the executive board?
I'll get
And my
into that next
question
time.
is specifically, once this change happens next November, who is responsible for the land management?
Well, that's my next, if I may,
Sure.
Mr. Chairman?
Okay.
Just one question on the school.
Yep.
Are there any other programs at Tech that lead to an interest in advanced education, degrees, that sort of thing that you're aware of?
Yes, but don't ask me to name them.
Okay, so-
One of the, probably the biggest ones is the cosmetology, and that does not really have a bachelor's degree, but they do have advanced certification and state licensing that students go to become cosmetologists. That one just happened to stick in my mind.
Yeah.
And off the top of my head, I can't think. I believe graphic design is another one where students will go to a secondary education like a college,
Yeah.
specifically for a degree in graphic design and computers.
Okay.
Culinary, I mean, they can go on to culinary schools, so
Yeah,
there's other,
very cool,
yeah.
thank you.
Yeah.
Horticulture.
Horticulture, yep, they have a lot of, so,
Okay,
there's a
good.
lot of opportunity for more
Yeah.
education after.
Great, good, okay.
All right. The next one that I bullet pointed in here is called the nonprofit. The reason why I put this in here is because this came out of the discussion for the management of the property if the school and the town and I decide to move forward with this as an entity. And one of the ways, and I only stress that, this is one of the ways that we looked at doing it, and that would be that I personally would create a 501c nonprofit organization, and that would be deemed the management entity of that piece of property. That management entity would be made up of a separate board of directors. I've already contacted a number of people who are interested in serving on that board. They will be made up of not only attorneys, but agricultural people and people that have backgrounds in landscaping and things like that. A very small board, not a big board. But in doing that and in discussing this particular aspect with my consultant, he thought it was a pretty good idea because there was a couple of things that came out of the discussion. The funds that get actually generated from that property, if in fact we do grow cranberries and they maintain their organic certification and they actually grow organic cranberries, they could be making anywhere from $10,000 to $15,000 a year, selling cranberries. Now, some don't want to see that money go into the school's general fund. Some want to see that money stay in the agricultural education center's pocket, so make sure that they have funds to move forward with in creating either new programs as they move forward, or doing and keeping up in the general maintenance of the property. There's an opportunity for the grant applications. As you all know, being a municipality, there are a number of different grant applications out there which are specific for school and municipalities, but there are also some that are out there for nonprofit organizations too. So I will have to tell you, and I want to preface, the nonprofit aspect of this is just at its beginning discussion stages. However, that has been one way that we have decided or looked at creating an actual board or a management team that will be looking at the property itself. And the reason why I keep saying separate, because the school has a curriculum board and an education board that specifically looks at this document and what they want to teach and who they want to attract to the school and how many students they're trying to get in from different towns, and to make sure they go on to, again, either future education, or if they go on to either a job right away. So that's what their focus is. To dump in that board's lap or the school's lap the management of the property, we believe out of the gate that it would be too much for them. This is one way of doing it. The other way of doing it all falls back into the third category of this presentation, which is going to be what really you all are going to tell us, okay? Because you're the town. So if the nonprofit situation is a good way to handle it, you are prepared, or I should say I am prepared to move forward with that. That's just one aspect of it. Second aspect of it, if it's just an agreement with the town and the school and there's no nonprofit organization, then the school would be tasked with hiring a full-time manager. Under the Chapter 74 requirements, they do have to have 24-hour maintenance, 24-hour call. Someone has to be responsible for the property all year long. As you all know, schools are not in session in the summer. So there's a lot to that, and this is why this came out of that discussion. Hope that kind of gives you some, at least, insight that we're thinking about it. It's not really a good enough direct answer, because quite frankly, we haven't moved forward that far yet. But at least gives you an idea that we are thinking about the property management, and this is one way of addressing it. I'll turn it back to the chair for questions.
John?
So here, under the town, on your second point, you're saying you hope to have an agreement to allow the leaseholder, i.e. you,
Yes.
to sublease the property and invest in its future. What
Well,
is
that's,
that?
do you want to get into that? Are we done with the, because
Well, I thought you were moving.
Well, no,
I
we're in the
thought you were moving-
nonprofit,
I just-
nonprofit aspect first.
Okay, all right,
Stan?
that's fine.
No, I understand what you're saying with the nonprofit, and I understand how a nonprofit works, but I'm getting a little confused because now the town owns the property, the nonprofit is just managing the property, and then the school is providing the programs, and I'm not sure how that's all.
Well, that goes into the second part also. So why don't we just run right into
Okay.
that? Because it sounds
All
like
right.
that's truly what the discussion is. Because quite frankly, this is what you people have to vote on, is the last part, which is called the town, all right?
Can I?
Presently, the
one-
town leases the property, yes.
One question, with respect to the nonprofit, so you've given us two options. One is the creation of this 501c3. The second one would be for the town, or I'm sorry, for the school to hire a full-time property manager. Is there any?
That's the things that we've talked about, as far as managing the property itself and being responsible for the management of the property.
So you don't envision any third option at all?
Nothing's come out of discussions yet.
Are there any resources at the
ideas?
town that could be lent to that kind of a? What do you mean? well, we have other properties in town that are managed by different areas within the town, natural resources or whatever. I mean, have we looked at whether or not we have a resource in the town itself that would lend itself to managing this property?
I didn't bother looking into that aspect, because
No.
I knew the answer a long time ago.
Yeah,
No.
I don't think we have a resource to be able to do, yeah.
All right.
I mean, the other
Within the
alternative,
town.
or the thing that did come up, is that the town does have an agricultural commission now.
Commission that needs to get, yeah.
Pardon me?
Go ahead.
Yeah, the agricultural commission, you have
Right.
established one. I don't know if there's members on it or not, but state law now has moved that the agricultural commissions can have care and custody of property, similar to what you people do as the Conservation Commission. So if you wanted to get another town entity involved, that's one way of looking at it.
Yeah.
But again, that's overseeing. I was kind of going with the gentleman's question, and I was kind of hoping to point out that there has to be boots on the ground there. And the boots on the ground are gonna be, well, if this all works out for me, it'll be me personally. I'll have an agreement with the town, and the 501c3 will be kind of, you know, overseer and aid to the school, and again, a way to bring in money.
Okay.
And use the money to, again, upgrade the property.
Yeah.
Very, very early stages on this thought, though.
Yeah, no, that's fine.
That, again, maybe, again, if you're gonna discuss this more, but that's where I'm having problems with the 501c3, which is a nonprofit generating the funds, but it's separate from the school itself.
That's correct. So this is why we're gonna get right into the next
So to me,
thing.
the 501c is just for maintaining the property and buildings and what, we're not in the problem. Nothing to do with school programs.
No.
Well, and selling the product that's produced on the property as well.
Well, it has
the
something to do
school
with the
is-
school programs, but it won't be the one who decides what classes are taught.
Correct.
It would have an input saying, listen, we want to, you know, we got the 10 acres of this piece of property, which is basically an unmanaged forest. We'd like to see, you know, why don't we talk about doing a forestry program and, you know, getting the kids out there and learning about cutting down the trees that are rotted and doing things like that. But it'll be the school's board who's the ultimate say for their classes.
But it sounds like any revenue that's generated from the school's programs, which are separate, are becoming the revenue of the 501c3, is what
Right,
I'm
which in
hearing.
turn will give it right back to the.
I'm not sure how that's gonna
Well,
work.
again, this is all in concept. I kind of brought this all up with things looking at the Friends of the Community Center, for example. There are many organizations out there that operate in this exact same fashion as this would. They are friends of it, they do fundraisers, they promote the community center, they have different events at the community center, they raise money, and then when the community center needs a new bus, you know, they help them pay for it. So
Well, that's
this
different.
concept, again, this is just in its concept stages.
Okay.
So I don't even know if legally it can move forward, because I haven't really thought that much of it. Because quite frankly, this whole discussion comes down to the last part. This is the key part of the discussion. Presently, I am the town leases the property to Cape Farm Supply, and you've extended my lease to November 1st, 2022. Okay, we all know that, that's the history. All right. It is our hope to have an agreement that would allow the leaseholder, now, I look at this kind of in a couple of different fashions here, so I don't want to mix it all together. If you just lease this property out again to a cranberry grower, I am going to tell you, as the present cranberry grower, do not do it for less than 20 years. Because I'll tell you right now, no one, I don't care how much money they make in the cranberry business, no one is going to invest money in the last 3 years of a lease that they don't know they're going to get a release to. Okay, it's business. You just don't do that. So 20 years is a significant amount of time. When I first took over this property, I put over $70,000 into this property. And I barely got it back in the 20 years that I was there. But had I been there for 10 years, there's no way I would have upgraded the irrigation system and upgraded the lift pump and put that kind of money out. I just wouldn't have done it. So if you're going to lease it out, these are your options. You can lease it out as an agricultural use again for the purposes of growing cranberries, And it would be my suggestion that you lease it out for a 20-year period. And in truth of disclosure, if the town decides to do that, I probably will be bidding on it. So that's why I do not want to advise you anymore on that aspect of it, because I don't want to hurt my own personal, interest if the town decides not to look at anything else and just go out for a straight agricultural 20-year lease.
Can
If
I,
it's a 10-year one, I wouldn't be doing it, but 20, yes.
just a point of clarification, I mean, you were talking pretty much directly about, lease it out for cranberries. I want to make it clear, it would be like the way we acquired this property, the way we could lease it is a general agricultural lease.
I said general agricultural.
At the end, sorry, at the beginning, it sounded like,
Similar to the lease you have
lease
right
it
now.
to a cranberry grower. It doesn't have to just be cranberries. It can be, as you're doing most.
General Law 128, 1A, which is what you leased it out under to me.
Yep.
I grow pigs there, I had sheep there,
Mm-hmm.
I had horses there, I had cows there, and I would highly suggest that if you're gonna do that again, that that's what you do. Don't just lease it out strictly for cranberries. But anyhow, I'm skirting the line here, because again, if you do decide to go that way, I do want to make sure that I leave my options open, that if I decide I want to release it again.
Excuse me, Mr. Chairman.
What? Yes, Jim.
Just a quick comment that, if we did decide to go that way, I think we would have to look into the state law, which in my understanding limits the terms of any lease agreements where, I'd have to check, but I don't think the town would be able to go into a lease longer than 5 years.
It's not true, but okay, I won't argue that fact tonight.
Yeah,
I
'cause
understand that fully. You'd have to look into all the aspects
We'd have to
of it.
look into it, because other than that, the state would consider it a sale.
Right.
And therefore, the town would have to basically advertise it as a sale of property.
We, the town, already did that when they leased it to me 20 years ago, so.
Okay, well.
You can go back and check your check the town's work on it.
It's just something that we would have to check before we
Absolutely,
would go in that direction.
fully understand. Okay. The options as I see it now are the conventional lease with language added for a nonprofit. The reason why I put that in there is because if you decide to just go out for a 20-year lease, there may be a nonprofit organization that might want to come forward and lease it and move forward with this proposal. I cannot say this indefinite, though, because I'm not sure if a 20-year period would be a lease that would satisfy the Chapter 74 argument with the tech school. So in other words, this is, like this gentleman wants to make sure that the town can lease it for 5 years. I want to make sure that if you do decide to put it out for a 20-year lease period, which would be an open to the public bidding process, similar to the one that I wanted on 20 years ago, that if a nonprofit was to submit an application, I have to find out whether the school would still be interested in working with that, under that time frame. Because again, I'm not positive of the state's requirements for the school, There is a thing called an intermunicipal agreement. And this is the one that I had thought would be the best avenue for the town to go in. An intermunicipal agreement which is between two municipal entities. Does not require a bidding process. It just requires the Board of Selectmen and whoever else here in town has some input into this, and the school to sign an agreement with the town as to use of the property. It's, again, something we don't have to rewrite the book on. This is done all the time. We have an intermunicipal agreement with the Monomoy school system. The town owns the land in which the Monomoy High School is built on, yet it is used exclusively by the Monomoy High School within a intermunicipal agreement. So, under the intermunicipal agreement, the school would enter into it with the town. I added the nonprofit in here. Again, I only did that just to show you that we're at least thinking of other ways However, it may not be the case. It may just be that the school enters into the agreement with the town, and then the school is then charged with hiring or creating their own, maybe inside the school, secondary oversighting board for this particular piece of property. Again, that would be up to the school's decision at that point. So you can enter into a municipal agreement with the school without having to, again, deal with all the other stuff, so. I have reached out to the town for almost a year and a half now, trying to get an answer as to where we're going and what we're going to do when I knew my lease was coming up. I think it's prudent now that we at least move forward with this discussion as much and as quickly as we can, especially in the town. I have not heard back from the town's legal department on an intermunicipal agreement yet. However, I highly suggest that might be something, as the gentleman says, he wants to look at whether we can lease it for 20 years or not. You may also want to look into the aspects of the legal aspects about entering into a intermunicipal agreement. Yes, sir. I'm sorry, Mr. Chairman.
Oh. Some of these options you present, you must have some idea as to which way, or maybe you're still thinking about them, but the school must have some input as to which way they would prefer to do.
An intermunicipal agreement absolutely is the best thing, avenue to go.
And they would manage the property somehow.
All written inside the municipal agreement.
No, I mean,
It would
that's
not
what
be
the-
specific, it would just be similar to the.
No, I understand that.
Yes,
but
they would
that's what
manage the
their
property.
preference is right
Yes.
now, is what you're saying. Okay, that's all I have.
John?
You go ahead.
Okay. Correct me if I'm wrong, but through that agreement, would it not be prudent for this whole thing to go before town meeting? And wouldn't that excuse the Conservation Commission from care and custody?
I'm not a lawyer, so you're asking the wrong guy. I'm just a simple farmer. To my knowledge and my background in municipal law and my time at the county, municipal agreements do not necessarily on the surface require a legislative body vote on the surface. However, as you mentioned, wouldn't it be prudent maybe to see if the town wants to do this? That's a decision that you folks have to make. You're the elected. I'm not elected to anything anymore. I don't have to answer to anybody, so.
Understood.
John?
So I really like the idea of having a third-party nonprofit entity. I'm not sure of the mechanics of that, but it seems like that would be one way. And part of what you're assuming, I think, is that there are funding sources that would not be accessible in other arrangements. Like,
Well, for instance, sir, if I may, I would donate all my cranberry equipment to that nonprofit tomorrow, and I'm sure I could get 3 other growers who are either going out of business, have gone out of business, or preparing to go out of business real soon, to donate a lot of equipment to that nonprofit for the specific purpose of using it there. So, yes, I do think there's a lot of opportunity when you create a nonprofit, yes.
So I guess what I'm thinking about is one of the issues here is the uncertainty for a lot of us looking on as sort of interested bystanders, not being involved in the industry, but there appears to be a significant amount of uncertainty about how anyone is actually going to make a living running a cranberry bog. And that's certainly what you're representing to us, Leo, and we've heard this other places. So having a third-party entity which would have some flexibility to maintain and sustain the property and have some reserve funds available to keep an operation going, continue to maintain the property and maintain the bogs, and be able to go out and solicit funding from other sources seems like a great idea to me. I don't know that there's a mechanism in the town, and I don't know, for example, the Conservation Commission is not really in a position to be writing grant proposals and things, trying to figure out how to raise money to run a cranberry bog. And there's a paucity of business people who want to invest in cranberry bogs as well, apparently. So I,
Give them my number.
give who your number?
People who want to buy a cranberry bog.
Yeah, well, that's.
I got a beautiful spot.
I'm just saying, I like this idea, but I don't know how it works exactly. I mean, one thing the town has done in a completely different area, and I don't know if it's a good analogy, is they've formed a housing trust, which is a separate entity, which is charged with raising money to fund buying property to establish affordable housing. And I don't know whether there's a way to do a similar third-party entity that's somehow equivalent to the housing trust, but for agricultural lands in Harwich.
Well, you have the Harwich, the Agricultural Commission,
Yeah.
which is now, legally can do all that.
They need to, actually, this came up the other day, I mean, it hasn't been active in a couple years, so we're gonna reach out and try to reactivate. Not me, forget who it was, but somebody else.
If I may, sir, the only thing is, and this is why I'm only saying all this stuff because I want this to move forward before November 1st next year. Because, okay? If the town was to lease it to a nonprofit organization who shows interest in working with the school, I believe that avenue would require a full-blown 30B advertisement and a full review of bids put in, similar to the same process you would use if you want to lease it for agricultural use to a individual or a entity. So the intermunicipal agreement, unless you go with Mr. Coleman's suggestion, and this is why I've reached out to your attorneys, because I think I would like to know what is necessary to move that forward. The intermunicipal agreement could have in it language saying that the school is going to create, or, there will be a nonprofit organization created, so.
But it seems to me that part of this is a choice you're going to make. You're going to choose whether to form a 5013C and bid on the property, or you're going to choose to bid on it as a private business. Because you're
I'm keeping
proposing both
my
those
options.
options here.
I'm keeping my options open. Sure, sir. Why wouldn't I?
Are you asking us which one of those we would prefer?
No, you're going to tell me before this January, I hope. I'm not going to ask you tonight. I don't want to know tonight.
Yeah,
I'm telling you what.
We're not going to tell you anything tonight.
Right. I'm
We-
telling you
I
what
guess
the
that's
options
what
are, and I
Alan's
just
been
say
waiting
that,
for a while.
that I don't know what I might do. I may not bid on it at all. I might just clean the property out and take all my stuff and go home. I don't know. But, as a businessman, I want to keep my options open too.
Okay.
If I may, Mr. Chairman, I respect Mr. Kokunis, and I've known him a lot of years, and we've gone through a lot of agricultural things together and formed the Right to Farm bylaw in the town when I was the chairman of the Agricultural Commission. I think he's got a lot of good ideas here. However, I don't know if they're ever gonna come to fruition. I respect your ideas, but I think maybe it might be the best bet where you have a new member on the board that is a cranberry grower that could help facilitate and have the history of how the bogs were run in the town of Harwich and how to keep them going, and maybe just have them so that we go back out the lease like you had, 20 years, I agree with you, because anybody that's gonna invest in that property to grow cranberries is gonna have to make a substantial investment. If you're a cranberry grower, you can advertise for your own grants. The NRCS puts in sprinkler systems, they give you funding mechanisms. The MDAR, Massachusetts Department of Agriculture, has a whole slew of different grants, viability programs. As a private person, you can apply for. So, I think we're in a better position now that I've joined. My own personal interest has been cranberries, and you all know that because of some of the conversations and some of the decisions you've made here in the past. So I want to make sure that the cranberry entity keeps going in this town of Harwich. The town has a lot of history. It all started here, the commercial part of it. People can say cranberry industry is going away, cranberry industry is doing this. It's a lot of everybody's personal opinion, how they run and manage their property, if they want to sell or whatever. They may have different things that we don't know what's going on. But as a town, We've bought a lot of acreage in this town over the last 60 years. A lot of them been cranberry bogs. Louis Fernandez Bog on Long Pond, which is now a beach, that was a cranberry bog. There's a lot of areas that the town has had that is going away. And that's one property that's left. The Great Swamp Bog is gone. The Reservoir Bog, you guys decided to naturalize it. I think Leo is trying to prevent this bog from going fallow and going away from agricultural use. I think that's your intention.
Absolutely.
And so I stand with him on that, and I'll be a good advocate, as I said last meeting, my first meeting. So I want to find a way to make this all work. I don't know if the schools and all that, you get all these different people involved, it just makes it harder. You know, I know the schools, I worked in the schools for 23 years as director of facilities, and there's a pesticide law called the Children's Protection Law Act. Wherever kids go, that's a huge thing. So I don't know if you can mingle in with agriculture. But I give him credit for trying to do what he's doing here. I think his intent is just to make sure that we don't let this fall to the wayside and grow up and go away. And with that, I support moving forward with the concept of leasing it to a private entity, be it yourself or whoever else. That's my viewpoint. And I think that's the direction we should go.
May I, Mr. Chairman?
Please.
I'm a realist, okay, with all due respect to Mr. Hall and the other cranberry growers, and I am a cranberry grower, so I don't mean to down myself, but I'm a realist, okay? I'm 65 years old. I've already passed out twice this summer on that bog out there on that property, all right? Even if I did lease it from the town as a cranberry grower for the next 20 years, right now, certified organic cranberries are paying 35 to 40 cents a pound. What are conventional guys getting? 27 cents a pound. I don't care who you are. I don't care how good of a cranberry grower you are. You're not going to make a living on 10 acres at 27 cents a pound. And I have done research in this because it's my living, okay? I don't see that ever coming back up to 80 cents or $1.20, or when I got into it, $1.80 a pound, right? It's just not realistic. Now, again, I have no problem leasing the property again. Will I grow cranberries there? Absolutely, I would grow cranberries there. But in the last 20 years, I made more money with sheep and selling meat. I bought refrigerated trucks. I bought a walk-in cooler. You know, I had contracts with abattoirs off Cape to bring the animals to be processed and brought them back here. So there's a lot of other avenues to make money, to live, to raise my family, to build my home, so that I could still keep the cranberry bog going. That's reality. I'm 65 now, looking at leasing this again for 20 years, and I'm trying to tell the town right up front, reality is it's just not gonna work. The chances are real slim that it's gonna work. This proposal takes this property and keeps it into agricultural use for perpetuity. For perpetuity. When Leo's gone and all you people here, with all due respect, are gone, the chances are really good that that particular piece of property, with the school involved in it, teaching and educating kids and using the cranberry industry to do that, will still have active bogs there, still be growing cranberries, and will be doing a multitude, a wealth of other things in there, all under the agricultural umbrella. This is just an opportunity that I see to truly keep this particular piece of property that the town owns in a viable agricultural operation.
Mr. Chairman, another comment. I love the way you're thinking, Leo, but I don't think that having the tech school involved guarantees that property being under agricultural use in perpetuity. And just one example about why I think that is that the tech school just 2 years ago canceled its welding program because they didn't have enough students, and they wanted to spend their resources doing other things. And if you're just relying on the tech school's maintaining programs over there, because they want to educate people in agriculture. I think that that's only good until there are no students who want to do that. And so I think that's why I like your nonprofit thing, because if there's a board in place that whose responsibility it is to maintain the place as a nonprofit for agricultural purposes, that's separate from the tech school's decision-making process, which their priority cannot be that bog. Their priority is spending taxpayers' money on educating taxpayers' kids, right, which is a different thing.
And that's exactly why we paid to have this research done, so that we wouldn't be, in 10 years from now, doing away with programs like you mentioned, the welding program. Because basically here, in this part of the Cape, there isn't a lot of jobs for welders. And it goes exactly to what I was saying to Mr. Hall. My intentions are not, neither is the school's intentions, to teach people to become cranberry growers. There's so many other things that are attached to agriculture that you learn through agriculture that I would argue with you, sir, that yes, even 30 years from now, there's going to be things that are going to be coming forward that are going to be tied right in to agriculture. Animal health, animal welfare, marine life, marine biology, the studies of the, or you guys were talking oysters earlier, what oysters can do. These are all the stuff we're doing today. 20 years from now, we never talk too much about what oysters can do to clean up a bay and an estuary, but we're talking about it today. These are things that I see in perpetuity that, yes, a school involvement, I see it as being a plus. But I'm also hearing you on the nonprofit, which is, by the way, why I put it in here.
You know, one thing that comes to mind, I know people have different opinions of it, cannabis. Huge industry, growing industry, and it's here on the Cape. So, I mean, there's all kinds of things you haven't even, that we haven't even thought of too, that are all potentially tied to this.
Wow.
But,
I didn't even go there, but okay.
So,
I mean, it's true, you have to realize it.
Yeah, I think it would be very helpful for all of us to hear directly from somebody from the tech school.
Oh, you will, sir.
Yeah, I think that would be very helpful, Leo,
Absolutely.
as soon as
Oh,
possible.
yeah, absolutely.
The other thing about your comment with regard to the nonprofit doesn't guarantee that it will continue forever. Nonprofits can be dissolved just as easily as they can be created. So doing a nonprofit doesn't guarantee any more than going with the tech school would be.
Yeah, Stan, one more.
well, can I just respond to that point?
Sure.
Because I get your point, but if the nonprofit is formed with a charter, and the charter requires a board of a certain
Right.
profile, then there's some continuity there. I agree that,
Not
change, the only thing that doesn't change is change always happens, so,
Not
we
necessarily.
can't guarantee
A
anything.
nonprofit can be dissolved just as easily as it can be created.
Yeah.
So it could be created today and dissolved 5 years from now.
Points made. Stan, last question.
Yeah, I guess one question, and I really wonder, who's really been pushing that, Leo?
Me.
You or the school for this program?
Actually, they came to me, and they had held a number of different programs and classes on the farm 5 years ago. I also became very involved with the UMass Dartmouth and pollinators, and natural pollinators, and the bee study when we were having the bee problem 5, 6 years ago. And it was through that and through open discussions that Bob Sanborn and I really felt that this was a road we wanted to go down. Then the tech school construction job came into place. And that took a lot of his time, certainly a lot of attention of the people involved in the tech school, the towns involved, the override, I don't have to go down all that. And then I also suffered some medical situations that took me out of the loop for about 2 years.
Well,
But I'm not going to say it was my idea. It was my idea, probably spurred, though, by working with the schools.
that's kind of what I hope the answer would be, because it has to be the school that's pushing for this.
Oh, they're pushing it now.
It's their programs.
Yeah.
They want to have this capability to do this on that property. Otherwise, it's not going to work. The other thing, I'm having a real problem with the 501c3. Because again, you've mentioned it's more of a management company, and I haven't looked into the rules and regulations on a 501c3 for a while. But I mean, I've done them where I've set some up for like libraries, schools, whatever. This is a management company, and I'm not sure how that all fits in together with the 501c3. And I'm not trying to answer this tonight.
Thank you, because I know nothing about creating 501c3s. Never have. I've been affiliated with many. Obviously, you guys all know I've been involved in a lot of different things, but I don't even know if that's the correct term. It might be a 501c4, which is
Whatever, but
agricultural
that's
things.
where I'm
but
having kind of
yeah.
trouble
Yeah.
tying how that's gonna fit in with this. I can understand the school and the property from the town, but I'm not sure
Yeah.
the in-between party, but.
I
think
think that
that's-
came out of the fact that the school, under the Chapter 74 filings and under the school's regulations, they need to show 24-hour management of that property. Where it is off the site, and maybe Mr. Hall can agree to this, I don't know, he's worked for school systems, but it is a building, a entity, a part of the school curriculum now, yet their maintenance people aren't going to be going there every day. They're, God forbid if there's a fire or something, who do you call at night? Who do you make sure that the kids aren't out there? I mean, do they have patrols that, during the school year? So in out of that discussion with me in the school, I said, well, first and foremost, you could just hire me for short money, $1 a year. I don't care, because I'm committed to this. Then we talked about it some more, and then the 501c3 came out. But all strictly just discussion at this point.
Preliminary, no? Okay.
I think we've probably covered as much as we can tonight.
Right.
Yeah, I tell you,
I
I really
appreciate it. We're
appreciate.
gonna be doing this a lot, and I'm gonna be
Yeah.
bothering you a lot, because I wanna see it move forward. Either way, I mean, it just needs to move forward. I mean, I'm doing my best and getting it ready for the next tenant, but, I still need to, I would like to see it move forward. Time goes by real quick, and I take responsibility for that too,
Thank you for all
But
of
as
this.
far as this board, I would ask respectfully, through Amy, that you at least start looking at some of these things that we talked about this evening. Get some input from attorneys so that we don't come to some kind of a informal, okay, let's move this way, and then we gotta waste 4 months because some attorney tells you, well, you can't do that.
Yeah.
It's really time to get thank you.
No, and I'll be speaking as soon as I get a chance to with administration, if this is a viable option, what Leo's proposing, then, meaning in terms of, is it viable for the commission? Is this the route you want to go? I've been going to be meeting with administration, and when I have a date, I'll let you know about that. But to talk about how, a lot of your questions are, how would all this work? I don't know, he doesn't know, so it's gonna come down to the attorneys and administration and how it can actually, how it could work, and that's what we'll work on.
Yeah, all right, good. Well, thank you
You
very
all
much.
very, very much. I'm sorry if I took up
Thanks, Leo.
more
I
time.
appreciate your time and all the work
Yes.
that you're putting into this. I think it's remarkable.
I have 20 years of my life there, and I would like to see it, mean something, and not sit fallow. And Alan's kid wants to release it, that's great. Thanks.
You signed up
All
for the AgCom, so.
Thank you.
Great.
All right. Next item on the agenda, we have the discussion of the violations at 52 and 47 North Road.
I think that's actually on the old agenda. Does the new agenda put 19 Wacquasit first.
Okay.
Mr. Chairman, can I just ask Amy something? Do you want me to stay for the, you're not talking about the other thing out back?
No.
Thank you.
Okay, thanks again. Thank you.
Does, Brad, you have the new agenda in front of you. Does 19 Wacquasit come before North Road?
After, north is next.
North is next, I apologize.
Sorry.
Go ahead, Mr. Chairman, with North Road.
Okay. You want to lead this one, Amy?
Sure, well, I know, so I see Mr. Smith is online. Mr. Smith, do you have two devices that you're using? Mr. Smith, are you on the call?
I am, not on a call, I'm on the meeting. Just clicked on
Okay.
my, I don't know who that was. I don't know who the other one was.
Okay,
Okay.
we can hear you now. If I may, can I just kind of walk the commission through kind of where we're at, and then you'll have free reign to speak?
Sure,
Okay.
absolutely, Amy.
Thank you. So, spoken with Mr. Smith, he is present. We have not had a chance to meet on site. The current enforcement order from the Conservation Commission instructs Mr. Smith to return 47 and 52 North Road to their existing conditions by September 6th, which would actually be the 7th, because the 6th is a holiday. And so to be specific, the two properties, I guess we can talk about, I'll separate them a little bit. 47 North Road is a little cottage that's on the river. The entire property is within the 50-foot buffer zone to the river in a floodplain. And at a previous meeting, the commission found that the work that has been done on the property is over and above the order of conditions for either the septic work or the bulkhead, which has been work has been permitted. The commission did issue an enforcement letter and cited 7 violations on that property, which Mr. Smith has received that letter. And then number 52 North Road is across the street, still within the 100-foot buffer and 200 to the riverfront. The commission found 2 areas that were not in compliance on that property. So Mr. Smith was not able to make the last meeting, so this is, Tom, this is your opportunity to kind of tell the commission what happened and ask questions as it pertains to the letters that we sent you. And I guess with that, I'll leave it over to you.
Okay, thanks, Amy. What I think I'd like to do is address 52 first and just address the 22.6 is what the footage was that you had on the deck that I have there now. And what was originally there was a 9-foot by 6-foot landing on the front entrance to the actual building. What I proposed was 12 feet past that, which equals the footage that was originally discussed. The 6 feet, to be honest with you, I don't know where that came from, because I think the footings on that porch are at 4 feet. And I think that's where the engineer had put the footings, which was the disturbed soil underneath that individual deck. So the 22 isn't actually what went on. It's actually 12 feet past the 9.
Okay.
The 9 was existing. Mine was 12 feet past that. It was on the plan that I gave the building department, and then I think I gave you from the beginning.
Okay. The building department doesn't have a permit for that, doesn't have a permit application for that.
Yeah, they don't have an approved permit. They have been dealing with them since, I don't know, 2 years, and I still don't have an approval on it.
Okay. So 6 feet, we measured out on the site, and it's 6 feet, not where the sonotube footing would be, but it is where the decking or the structure itself was. And I mean, that does count, I mean, in terms of width, it's covering ground area.
Right.
The commission doesn't.
I understand what you're saying. The 6 feet, I had it as, or I'm assuming my engineer had it as where we were putting the actual footings, which was 4 feet, and it was cantilevered over. But I'm willing to address that. I don't have a problem with that. The 21 feet was what it was originally. It's just 9 feet was the landing that was there originally, 9 feet by 6, which shouldn't come into play on the new. Basically, we're talking about new structure or new conservation issues.
Yeah, I just don't think it was clear on your site plan that there already was a landing there. I'd have to go back. Actually, I do have it here with me. Hang on.
Yeah, there's an overhang on the building. There's a landing there. It's basically the front entrance of the house. And the new structure that I have planned there that I'm trying to get a building permit on is supported from those front overhangs.
Your site plan does show the landing.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, it's been there forever. I think it's original to the house. I'm not 100% sure of that, but the 12 feet was the new, meaning anything that had to be changed from that point on. So that's how the engineers came up with the 12 feet.
Okay. So as it stands, in addition to that landing, which I have to see, hold on, I might have to measure it. But at any rate, whatever size that landing is, they did ask to extend 12 feet, so whether it's 22 or it would actually, if you added 9 plus 12.
Yeah, it's 21.6, I think is what it is.
So, and then you did ask for 4 feet wide. So I think, I mean, out of the two properties, this one is a little bit of the easier one to kind of figure out.
Yeah, no, and that's why I wanted to address it first, Amy, just to get it out of the way and make you clear as to what my thoughts were and what happened in that situation. The 2 additional feet, I guess, is the cantilevered over the actual footings, which if I need to come back in front of you for that, I have no problem with that. I thought it was all on the up and up.
No, we don't, we consider any, I mean, cantilever, it's structure, it's covering area, even, I mean, it's only over a couple inches from the ground, it's not too far from the ground itself.
Yeah, okay, I understand what you're saying. So cantilevered over is something that you want to figure in, and that's okay with me. So we got 2 by 12 or whatever it is that I'd be happy to mitigate or whatever is necessary to make you happy on that.
So that's the 2 avenues. You could either mitigate for that, which would probably be on the northwest property area line up by the wetlands there on the northern property line.
Either way, you'll have to come back with a presentation, right?
Well, I mean, it's a small amount of mitigation. You could also, if you were amenable, I could work with Mr. Smith on that, because it would only be a few plants. So if you wanted to do it that way, we could amend the enforcement to that effect, or you could require him to come back for an amendment for that structure.
All right.
And then, go ahead.
I would suggest we talk about North 47 then.
Well, the other part of 52 was that gravel area that's over where the proposed septic would be. Tom, if you don't mind can we do that first before we go to 47?
Yeah.
Tom, can you address that gravel area, please?
Yeah, absolutely. As I told you, Amy, before I got into it, I was just going to start to prep for the possible septic there. I'm trying to, as you know, change that septic to the back of the property and get it further away from the wetlands. But I wanted to prep that out and get rid of the stumps and the trees that were hit by that tornado. So, and also find out what we had to deal with there as far as soils and that type of stuff, because it wasn't clear in the engineering. So we stripped out the stumps and cleaned everything up and found out what we had for soils. And we actually found out that there wasn't, there's not a cesspool there. There's actually a tank there, which I'm not sure why that is, but there's a tank there, which is, I think it's a 1,500 gallon tank. We didn't dig it up, but we just kind of cleaned up that area. And the stone that I was using for 47, I just kind of put in that area thinking we're gonna change that in the future if we have the septic there. So basically, I just kind of cleaned it up, got the stumps out, preps things out, and put the stone on top.
So the commission's, I would recommend that we kind of will take an action, if we're gonna take any action on 52 and then move to 47. So as far as the gravel area, I guess the option would be it was just kind of Cape Cod lawn there prior. Do you want him to remove the stone and put down just a Cape Cod mix of grass seed, or do you want to let him leave the stone for now?
Any comments, commissioners, on this? My feeling is that the lawn is preferable to having the gravel there, because if you have gravel, you're gonna have, it's more likely you have vehicles parking on it, leaks from vehicles into the soil and all that sort of a thing. I'd prefer to see it restored to the lawn.
So,
I'm sorry, Mark.
Isn't there going to be a septic plan or a site plan available for that?
I have the septic plan. We approved the septic. I'm happy to share it with you. There's a wall proposed around it, I believe. So where the gravel area is right here. I just get that back later.
Thank you.
I was looking at that, Mark, or John, did you have a comment?
well, it was related. Mr. Smith referred to an attempt to move the septic system behind the property. First, what does that mean? And second, aren't there wetlands on the other side of the property too? So moving it away from the river toward, isn't there marsh back there on the other side of the property?
On the north side of the property, there is marsh.
So is there any room anyway to possibly?
This is the farthest, where the septic is approved to be, is the farthest, it's the environmentally best place to put it. It's farthest from where it's been approved is farthest from the wetlands and the river.
Okay, so then where is the current tank relative to that optimal place? This?
If, Amy, if I could interject here. I don't know if you guys are hearing me and get a lot of feedback here.
Go ahead.
Yeah, where my proposal would actually take the septic system more than 100 feet from the wetlands, which is what I want to do. The property where the original owners had that septic system set up is on that corner, which is a mounted septic system, which takes up that whole corner. I want to have my driveway there and eliminate the driveway on the other side. I would like to take and put the septic system further away from the wetlands, which my property goes out almost like an L shape and then back 150 feet. And I think I can get more than 100 feet from the wetlands for my septic system, which would be a positive, and bring it probably 400 feet more from the actual river itself, which I think is a positive. That's what I would like to do with it. I'm in the process of it with my engineers and trying to get that situated, but as everybody knows, they're really backed up and they're working on it as best they can. But I've already had the wetlands surveyed, and I brought in a wetland specialist, found out how far I am, and I think it's a positive for everyone. I talked to the neighbors, they're all good with it. And basically we do a mounted septic system further away from the wetlands. I own 5 acres there. It's not some tiny property. And this is, I think, a positive for everyone. But I've yet to determine whether I could do that depending on their survey work and how they design the plan. But I believe I can be more than 100 feet. I think it can be 140 feet from where we are now,
All right, well, let me.
as opposed to.
Yeah, let me just say, in the interest of time, I don't think we need to get into this any longer. I
No.
think our purpose tonight is just to talk about the two violations. that
Yep,
were
so I
cited.
guess
Okay.
that all being.
I
heard,
understand.
It kind of sounds like that gravel area was really put there for people to be parking on. My recommendation was that that stone be removed and that just, it's be seeded with a native grass.
Yeah.
And that you let me work with Mr. Smith on, you decide whether just a couple of, a little bit of mitigation for the for the small increase in the deck size, or if you want an amendment for that.
Yeah, I mean, any comments with respect to those two issues?
Sounds reasonable to me.
Do we need a motion on that?
Yes, because you issued an enforcement order instructing Mr. Smith to put the property back by, it'll be September 7th, because it was the 6th. So, it sounds like, if you decide to have him remove the stone, I would maybe recommend, September 7th is Tuesday, maybe give him an extra week on top, to do that. And then, in the same time frame, have him start to work with me about a couple of plantings.
Okay. So I would make a motion to, with respect to 52 North Road in Harwich, to have the gravel area returned to grass, Cape Cod lawn mix as it was previously, and also with respect to the deck, to have that, to allow the current size of the deck with appropriate mitigation as worked out with the Conservation Administrator. All this work to be done by September 14th.
I'll second that.
Any comments? Mark, you got a,
If I could interject about the stone situation, I think it actually helps road runoff there. I think if we put grass back in, it diverts the water back to the river, which I think is a negative.
well, there are other
The
ways.
way I have it right now, the water flushes through the stone, which is actually cleaning it before it hits the river, which I think is a positive. There's literally no drainage there on either road, on Smith Street or North Road. So everything funnels down right to the left of my property into the marsh, which I think is a complete negative. That's my belief.
Yeah, I would suggest you deal with that with a swale or something like that, but to put that much stone in that area simply to control road runoff, I don't think is appropriate, so.
I think it invites people to park on it, which potentially could leach things more readily into the soil, so.
So we have a motion, we have it seconded. Is there any other discussion gone? All in favor? All opposed? Okay, the motion carries. Turning to 47 North Road then,
Abstain. I was going
Amy?
to abstain because I wasn't really involved in any of the other
Okay.
stuff.
I'm sorry, one abstain then.
Okay. Okay, so 47 North is the property that's on the river. And here there was just several places where there was expansion and hardscape. And what was originally permitted there was the cesspool to be replaced by a tight tank, which has not occurred yet. And then the commission approved the installation of a bulkhead on the landward side of the existing bulkhead because there was some undermining going on. And the commission did find that decking had been expanded over the river. The decking in the back of the house was more extensive. There were 7 points of a violation for this. And now would be the chance for you to address them.
Okay, yeah, let's start with one, failure to remove outdoor shower. I took the outdoor shower enclosure away, I think within a week from when you asked me to do that. And I removed the valve that controls the shower. So there's can be no water going to it. The water's been shut off before that as well, so there's no water going to the actual shower. It has not been used since you told me to remove it. I know it says the shower head is still there, yeah, but the shower head is useless without a valve or water flowing to it. And it hasn't been used since you asked me that. I feel it's kind of unfair to fine me for something that I did what I thought was right to address your issues.
I mean,
That's number.
go ahead.
Go-
You wanna,
Go ahead, Amy.
should we do them individually?
Now, let's just roll right through them, shall we?
Go ahead. Go ahead, Tom. You can go on to the next.
Okay, failure to remove fenced area around utilities. I totally agree with that. I did not remove it. As I said to you, Amy, I would like to keep that area fenced. I'm trying to protect this little area and enclosure on my property to cover a multitude of ugliness like hot water heater, gas tank, air conditioning, the whole deal, and just a little place to store maybe a garbage can or something for trash removal and that type of stuff. I didn't put any more posts in the ground or anything. I just wanted to cover it up. You know, the neighbors they're not really happy because of both properties. They've been looking at under construction for 2 years now, and I'm just trying to kind of make everybody happy. So that was my feel on that. I removed 60 feet of fence, and I put up 2 sections of fence. I felt that I should be entitled to do that in this piece of property.
Okay,
That's number 2. Do we want to go to number 3 or any questions or comments or?
Keep moving.
Okay, number 3, installation of hardening stone area that was supposed to be seeded with native grass. What I did was after I prepped everything for I don't know if you guys heard this or not, but the gas company had an issue there and they had a leak and they had to come in and they dug up basically the whole yard. I came in afterwards and just basically brought it back to the condition it was. They tore up what I had for a walkway was a concrete walkway with flagstone on it. They had to tear that up to deal with it. It's hard to believe, but there's a maze of gas going under that property, and I don't know why. They couldn't really explain it to me. It's got gas lines going in 5 different directions. I guess it's a central thing for them. If anybody's looked at it, I don't know if you guys have been to the property, but there's markings all over the road. They were there. They had 10 guys there for like a day and a half, and they still have plans to do other things there and change other things. But when they took up that concrete walkway, I needed a walkway to the house. I put in brick, which I thought was better for drainage and allowing water to dissipate before it reached the river. And I actually even contoured it so the water would run inside as opposed to outside into the river. The stone in the driveway that I put down was because I need a driveway, number 1. But number 2, there was stone there originally dug down. There was 6 inches of stone from a previous driveway. All I did was redo the driveway that was there, which my belief is that it's better than grass. Grass, everything that was there before was funneling down into the river. Now it goes into the stone and leaches into the sand underneath it, and it cleans it before it gets to the river, which I think is a giant positive.
Okay, number 4.
Number 4, installation of the hardening brick walkway we talked about.
Yep.
Installation of the decking over the bulkhead. The decking over the bulkhead was just capping the bulkhead that was there. I went from a bulkhead that was 1.5 feet wide, basically piles plus backing 6 inches and 2-bys after that. I had to put my piles behind that, my retaining wall behind that, which made this wall now 3 feet wide. And I wanted to cap it with something that held everything together. So I capped it with 2-bys, tied the whole wall in and kept it from moving left or right, basically increasing it probably 10 inches because you come to the other side of the pile. And I cut the tops of the piles off and just capped everything out. So everything was tied together and structurally sound, which is really what it needed there in order to keep it in place. Because when I went in there, I had to take out 5 truckfuls of debris. And I did the best I could to take everything out of there. There was literally 100 railroad ties in there, creosote soaked railroad ties, bricks, trees, stumps. I cleaned that all out. I put in washed sand behind that and got everything as clean as possible. And I don't know if you guys have seen it, but the marsh to the left of my property is growing better now than I've ever seen in the 3 years I've owned it. It's literally flourishing there now. And I think it has something to do with the fact that I'm filtering that water that flushes down the road in either direction before it hits the river.
Okay.
Insulation, a decking, bulkhead, I guess we talked about that, blah, blah, blah. I have a Chapter 91 license that tells me that I have to maintain that, and I have to make sure it's sound, not if you want to make sure that it's sound and solid and that it's taking care of business, and that's what I did with my construction of the deck to tie everything together. Then we moved to 6, I guess, insulation, a couple steps that you need to have a step to get to your deck. So I put a step in. Basically, it's a 16-foot rise. I put an 8-inch step. By code, I have to do that to meet building and obviously for litigation and liability purposes. Expansion of the deck on the water side, I think we already talked about. That was part of tying in just all of those piles and everything to keep them from moving and shifting. And they're basically leaning towards the water right now. I'm hoping what I did holds that together. I don't know if it will, but I'm hoping it does. If it doesn't, I'm going to have to put in piles in front of that to keep that from leaning forward. And that's based on maybe the construction before me or whatever. Maybe I don't know what was done. I did what I could do to make it a better place. Is basically what I feel about this, and that's my explanation.
Okay. Amy, do you have any comments?
Sure. Just any expansion of hardscape when you're within what we call the inner riparian zone to the river, which is a 0 to 100 foot of the river, you have significant standards in the Mass Rivers Act that you have to abide by. And not only was some of this work done without permit, but it exceeds what would have been permitted by the state under the Rivers Act regulations in terms of surface coverage area on the site. So, again, we've talked about it many times. Phone calls can go a long way. If you had any deviations from anything that you thought you were permitted to do, or even if you didn't know it was a deviation, you said, give this office a call is the first step. So, you also have site coverage.
And Amy, I understand that. I thought we talked about this ahead of time, how we had to tie those piles in. My engineer talked about how we had to.
Would you let Amy finish her comments, please? Would you let her finish her comments, Mr. Smith?
Sure. Yep.
We did not discuss putting a cap over the bulkhead. We discussed having to put the bulkhead behind the existing bulkhead and put anchors in behind to make sure everything was secure. There's a deck now on top of, in my mind, and sure, it may lend something structurally, but there's a deck you're putting railings, not railings per se, but cables across as if it's like a fence. It is a deck, an extension of your deck, because it connects to the deck that goes to your house. And the deck that goes to the house is not just along the top of the bulkhead, but the deck itself as you exit the back door of the cottage, that deck area is bigger than previously was, that we previously had permits for. The outdoor shower, I know you said that, so I'll just go down quickly. We said in your order, including the head, we don't know if you took a valve off. We see a shower head back there with a shower that's 4 feet from the water, the riverfront area. It's concerning to us. So I would say at least we would have to verify that there's, when you turn on anything, there's no way to turn on anything out there. And if there's no way to turn on anything, what's the harm in removing the shower head? So the fenced area around the utilities, that area may or may not have expanded, but you were issued a stop work on that, but then walls, essentially the paneling to that fence went up after that stop work was issued. Again, this is more structure in the 0 to 50, and all of our structures in the 0 to 50 require mitigation. There is hardening under the stone area, which is now looks to me as if it's like a driveway, which is in the area where your tight tank was proposed to be. I know that you're pursuing trying to tie that septic in across the way to the other property, but that has not happened yet. There's hardening under there, and there's also hardening underneath the walkway that leads up to the house. So your argument about improving of drainage, hardening does just that. It becomes an impervious surface over time. So, I mean, unfortunately, I think these are fairly serious issues. And the commission has two avenues, if you will, Mr. Smith. The commission can allow you to file after the fact for some, all, or of these activities. You do have the ability to apply for them. The commission, if they don't think that these things would ever be approved, they may not want to have you have the time and money to try to put a filing together. They could just pursue this enforcement order, which is to have you rectify things by next week. But that's all I have, Mr. Chairman.
All right, thank you. Any comments from the commissioners on what's been discussed so far? Brett?
I support Amy's recommendations.
John?
Yeah, I do. I'd just like to add that I would recommend that we insist not just that the shower head be removed, but all the associated plumbing. Because just removing a valve it can be reinstalled easily. And all the associated plumbing should be removed, so a shower cannot be easily reconfigured there anytime. And I agree with the rest of the recommendations of Amy. I'm not sure, there may be some places here where we might, if there were, I don't know, I don't see any specific things that I would feel comfortable with accepting in this. And I think we should proceed with the enforcement. And if Mr. Smith wants to come before us and ask for changes, then that's his right.
Yeah. I tend to agree with all the comments that have been made. I look at all of these 7 items, and essentially any of them that had been applied for, from my perspective, given the fact that the entire lot is in 50, any additional work other than what was previously there and grandfathered, I think we would have been hard pressed to approve. So again, we can't stand in the way of your filing an after the fact request for approval. I think it would be difficult for us to approve anything. In addition to which, that entire lot is essentially, there's no room to mitigate on that lot that I'm aware of. So it would be in lieu of fees, so it would be an additional expense for you to get it approved. But I'm I agree with the comments that have been made and that the enforcement action that's been taken is probably appropriate.
May I ask a question?
You may.
Seeing as how it is a week before that deadline comes, Mr. Smith was not able to be, he had some, an emergency he had to be at, was not able to be at the last meeting. Would the commission, because there is substantial work to put the property back, would you consider giving him an extension to fixing, restoring 47 North Road?
What would you recommend? I'm thinking a month, perhaps?
Another, yeah, a month.
Everybody comfortable with that?
That would be, so it's supposed to, the
October
6th.
1st?
Well, it was supposed to be September 6th, so an additional month would be, a month from now. I was just gonna say that October 6th, and a month out from a few extra days.
Whatever.
Yeah, that's fine. So we need a motion on this?
Yes.
So I move we enforce the enforcement action that's been, oh, I should have the date of that. Hang on a second. Let me fix. The August 6, 2021 that was sent to Mr. Smith details the enforcement actions, the steps that are, 7 steps that are needed to return the property to its previous condition, and that the deadline for that work to be done be extended to October 6th, 2021, and the enforcement action and fines that were detailed in that letter continue to apply. Any questions, comments on that?
Second.
It's seconded. Discussion? All in favor? Aye. Aye.
Abstain.
One abstain. Right,
Okay.
okay, good. All right, thank you, Mr. Smith.
Okay, thanks for your time.
Tom, you can be in touch with me if you need to chat, okay?
Yeah, absolutely, Amy, I'll call you.
Thanks.
Next on the
Thanks.
item on the agenda is discussion of 19 Wequassett Road.
I believe Mr. Stevens might be on the line, or at least he was.
Do you have me?
Yes.
Am I there?
Can hear you.
Yes, thank you.
Okay.
Mr. Chair, how do you want to proceed? Do you want me to do a little intro and then, or,
Why don't you do that?
Okay.
Yeah, that'd be fine, thank you.
all right, let me change my thoughts here from last one to this one. So the Conservation Commission, this is regarding the fence in the water side of, the yard at 19 Wequassett Road, which Mr. Stevens and his wife Rita own. The Conservation Commission noted that newer fence was installed fairly recently encompassing the backyard. The commission issued, or at the June 2nd meeting, instructed Mr. Stevens to remove said new fence. And then at the next meeting, the letter was issued detailing to be removed by July 1st. I mean, Mr. Smith did put a request in writing to me, which I shared with you, asking for an extension to that deadline for a few days. We did discuss it at that meeting on, I believe it was the 16th of June. The commission elected not to allow the fence to stay for a couple more days, and that the deadline for removal was the 1st. The fence, the water side, I guess we could talk about 3 sections of fencing if we're talking about this. There's a northern property line fence, a southern property line fence, and I'll call it the water side fence, okay? So the water side fence wasn't completely removed, and that was including the posts until, I believe it was the 16th of July, and that was based on actually an email that I received from Mr. Stevens saying the last of the fence was removed this morning, and that was on that date. Then we got into discussion regarding fencing on the southern property line and the northern property line, and the fact that there was wire fencing. So, in the past, several years ago, before the Stevenses embarked on their, your bank restoration project that you were doing, I do recall, and I will say, there were bits and pieces of wire fencing along that bank. I don't recall it ever being contiguous. So I do think that would be an impediment to wildlife moving throughout the area, and it is pretty much right on the bank itself from the marsh. So skipping to the fence on the south property line, Mr. Stevens did provide, and Mr. Stevens provided a letter yesterday, which I put in your Dropbox yesterday. I think there's some merit to there being a fence there, probably on and off over the years on that southern property line. And provided that the wire fence and the fence on the water side of the house is not there, because it seems like there was some evidence of that southern property fence being there, like I said, intermittently, I would recommend to the commission that that be allowed to remain. The fence on the northern property line is a bit harder to kind of find record of. There's been a gate or a trellis between the front and backyards that I do recall. But the fence itself wasn't. That's really up to the commission. I would consider that a new structure. Potentially, Mr. Smith could apply to have some fencing outside the 50-foot buffer, but that extends quite a ways, onto this, towards the front of the yard anyways, or at least to the side of the house. Mr. Stevens did request and, or agreed to remove the wire fencing. And Mr. Stevens, when you have a chance, when you speak, I'll let you speak to what your letter says more specifically about, wanting to keep the southerly fence being negotiable about the northern property line fence. And I think we all can agree that we do want to put this to bed and put this all behind us. So I'm hoping we can find a resolution tonight. I believe you also requested the rescindation of the fines. So with that, Mr. Stevens, if I said anything correctly, I apologize, but feel free to speak up.
Great, thank you. Thank you, Amy. That's correct. The two issues are, one, I'm requesting the fine be looked at again. If you recall, the timing was a little funky because we did have a meeting. This goes back to the 15-day fine. We had a meeting June 2nd. Then we had a site walk, I want to say probably the Monday before your June 17th meeting. And it was sort of suggested that we could look at that July 1 date as a tough date, given the fact that it was July 1 and July 4th. There might be some room. But at the June 17th meeting, that sort of changed. So on June 17th, I was told that July 1 was a firm date, which gave me basically 8 days. And I think it rained every day, as you probably remember, up to the 4th of July. Couldn't get anybody out there, so basically July 5th, I was attempting to save this fence and take it out in components, but I had to remove the middle sections, which I did July 5th and 6th, but then I had to get a saw, and I thought I could pull the post out, but I couldn't. So I came back after the weekend, July 10th, and cut all the posts out and got rid of them the weekend. I think it's the weekend, July 10th, I went to the town dump with those. I didn't get the pictures to you to the 16th, but they were out that Sunday, the 10th or 11th of July. So that's the first issue I'd like to the board to consider. The second one is, Amy's right that I could not find very strong evidence on the north fence. There was a trellis. He had the previous owner back in 2014 had a trellis and a fencing system there. Not sure if it connected up through the side. That's where a line of abrevieties are. So I guess I, so to speak, don't have a leg to stand on for the north fence. which I'm okay with coming down. Obviously, the water side is down already. We've actually taken down the wire fence. And what we're hoping, we did find a plan from 2007. We have pictures from 2014. As I mentioned in my letter, I know the commission, the previous owner had a couple of odor conditions in 2011, 2013. I'm sure that fence was there between the Hineses. If you recall, the Hineses is where the entrance was for the dredging work. So there was quite a bit of work on their yard. They're at 15 Waquasit. So that fence has been there in some shape or fashion since at least 2007. So I was hoping we could keep it, especially because the Hineses and we're good friends, but they have a little dog too. So we try to keep the two of them separated. It's not we don't think it's an impediment to any animal. It's only 36 inches high, and now there's about 6 feet of clearance from the base of it to the top of the bank. But we'd like the commission to consider those two items. And we'd like to get rid of all the open appeals and sort of move on.
Okay, thank you. For discussion, any questions from the commissioners? Comments?
Sorry.
One comment I have is the mention that you have in your letter about someone suggesting that removal by the 15th would be acceptable. I remember being at your property, and that was Carolyn O'Leary that mentioned that, and she presented it as a question to the other commissioners as, would we want to consider delaying the removal date because of your representation that you were going to have a July 4th party there and everything. There was no, it was simply a question, and there was no representation that, or even a suggestion that the removal by that date would be acceptable to anybody on the commission. With respect to the side fences, yes, I appreciate your sending us the additional documentation that you did and the picture showing that the fence was there previously, and I think that helps us as far as confirming that southern line of fence that you've left up is appropriate. The northern fence, as you've mentioned, I think that does still have to come down, and my understanding that's still present. Is that right? Still there?
Correct. Yeah.
All right. So from my perspective, I think the fine that we imposed was entirely appropriate, given that we provided you with a deadline. You mentioned you tried to find contractors to do it, but ultimately did the work yourself, and I think you could have done it by meeting and met the July 1st deadline had you had that sense of urgency that I think we tried to impart to you to get that fence down, and it just didn't happen. So from my perspective, the fine that we talked about at length is still appropriate. So that's my comments. Those are my feelings. Anybody have any additional comments on that?
I agree with you.
Same here.
So next steps on this, I think we need to, do we need to reinforce the need to remove the northern?
Yep, and I would suggest, similar to the last hearing, that we give them a month to do so. The section on the north side, and
I think the fine that we imposed, the $4,500, covered the entire fence, so I don't see that we need to add any additional fine.
No, nothing additional. I wouldn't
like that.
recommend
I don't think
anything
that's
additional.
necessary or appropriate at this point. So where do we go on this?
If I could, I will attest that the sections of the fence, it wasn't a fence as of July 5th. So if there's a fine for 5 days, because I left posts up, it was not a fence after July 5th. It was 8 36-inch high white posts. So if there's fines, it should be for 5 days. And I really don't think appropriate, but obviously you guys do, so I got to respect that. But $4,500 is not appropriate, and it'll just prolong everything here. So I think it's more than fair to say that we did what we had to do the day after the 4th of July, the day after it stopped raining, to get all the sections of the fence out. And it was just the post remaining, which to me is not even a fence anymore. But it's neither here nor there.
With the 15th, I'm sorry. When we defined the fine through the 15th, I thought we received something from Mr. Stevens as to when he said it was finalized.
We did receive an email saying the last of the fencing was removed. It was either the 15th or the 16th.
Right, and that's what.
So, and now I think you're saying that's what.
Defined the basis for our fine.
Right, when the structure as a whole was removed, and I would say even the posts, I mean, are disturbance in the 50-foot buffer. So they were part of the fence. I understand your point, Mr. Stevens, that without the paneling, maybe they wouldn't, but they were part of the fence as a whole, so.
And that northern side is 2.5 months later is still there too. So that was part of the original order, part of the original calculation of the fine as well for those few days. That, given the extra 2.5 months that's been up too, I think is cause for concern, and I think cause for us to stick with the $4,500 fine that we originally calculated. So do we need a motion on this, or?
A motion to extend the time to remove that northern section of fence to October 6th, please.
Do we also need a motion to, whatever, rescind the order to take out the southern fence, or is
I'll
that-
make it very clear we just said remove fencing. I don't think we specifics. Let me look at the letter. I will make it specific you can put in your motion to allow the southerly fence to remain, but the northern section, which we don't have a history of there being a fence there, should be removed by October 6th. Sound good?
Okay, I'll make a motion to require the Stevenses to remove the fence along the northern border of his property, and to allow the Stevenses to leave the existing fence as it currently exists on the southern, whatever is there on the southern border of the property bordering 15 Quasi. And that the removal of the northern piece be completed by October 6th.
You have a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All opposed?
I
Abstain?
said aye.
Isn't it?
Okay, it's unanimous. All right, thank you, Mr. Stevens, for attending tonight.
Thank you.
Thank you. All right.
Item on the agenda is adoption of the new regulation pertaining to the acceptance of the change in the bylaw for in-lieu fees as mitigation.
So the bylaw language for the in lieu fee addition to our revolving fund was approved right before the deadline the Attorney General had, I think 2 days prior. So they approved it. That language was very broad, though. It basically said to add to our revolving account. We have a revolving account that takes a very small portion of our filing fees and puts it into wetlands. We can use that money, which I'll talk about later, actually. But that would add that to this fund, and if we ever came across, if we come across projects that they need a variance and can't do mitigation, but the project's not gonna have an adverse impact to the wetland resource, you can offer in lieu fees. So that passed. Now we just have to kind of get down to the nuts and bolts of it, which we had already drafted, and I handed these out at the meeting either tonight or if I saw you on site today. It's the page with the little 2 lines on the back. Now we kind of have to iron out the nuts and bolts of And we did that previously, so now is kind of the chance to, can't reinvent the wheel here, but to either motion to adopt these regulations as written or make some tunings. But this is what the commission voted on previously.
I only had two really minor fine tuning points
Please.
on it. Under number 5, in the third line, it says the plan shall also provide for area calculations for the amount of buffer, and I added
Area.
zone, or buffer zone altered, because we talk about the buffer zone up in the first paragraph.
Zone area, okay.
And on the last, second page, the last sentence, Inlieu fees shall be paid.
Yep.
And those are the only changes I had. Oh, you have planting crossed out under number 2, under sub number 5. You wanted to take that out for the final draft.
Yes, I will, yeah. I'll just circle it so I see it even more.
Any other
I don't have
comments,
any
changes?
Changes.
Say this warrants a big yay. We finally got there.
Got something done.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, we've been through the language quite a bit. You know, there's a little heartache on how to apply it, but I think the language is good.
Excuse me, do we need a motion to accept this
I
language?
believe we do.
To adopt these new regulations, yes.
Okay, well, if there's no more discussion, I'll make a motion to adopt the regulations as drafted.
Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Thank you. Go ahead, aye.
Next item is discussion about presentation of the proposed water, this is for the bylaw meeting.
You said that with such excitement.
Wow. Next Tuesday.
Yes, so Tuesday, because Monday's a holiday, the Board of Selectmen are meeting on Tuesday. And prior to, we will be having a town meeting indoors on October 18th. That's a Monday evening. So the Board of Selectmen are finalizing the articles that they're gonna put on the special town meeting warrant. I was told today that, as of right now, there are 17. They wanna get this through in one night because special town meeting, it's really hard to get a voting quorum the second night on a special town meeting. So they may consolidate a few articles, but essentially, the commission is going to be, and by commission, I mean Ernie and Brad, are going to be presenting the changes to the Board of Selectmen at their meeting Monday night. We did have some public meetings in the past, but we're getting close to this town meeting, and the Board of Selectmen would like to have a meeting about it. So we're doing that, and I will be present to assist. If we can talk, Ernie and Brad and I are actually gonna have coffee tomorrow and go over kind of who's gonna probably do what and what we should include. I guess before I get too far, if we have 4 or more members of the commission present at that meeting, I need to post an agenda and I have to do it tomorrow. I don't mind doing that, but if, besides Ernie and Brad, who else plans to be there? And you have to physically be there because they're not doing hybrid.
This is the Board of Selectmen.
This is
meeting
at the
on
Board of
Sept.
Selectmen meeting.
Does it make sense to post so that people can decide if they
I can
make
do
it?
that, yeah. I guess that's probably best.
The more the merrier.
If you go to the meeting, do you have to be as part of the commission now?
It's iffy. I'd rather be safe than sorry. And I think you're right. I'll just post an
Yeah,
agenda.
maybe just to be safe.
Yeah. If not enough, I'm gonna post an agenda. I have to do minutes.
What is the time of day of the meeting?
Starts at 6.
6, okay. And
They will have the agenda posted online tomorrow,
Okay.
so we can see where we're at on the agenda. I don't know where we're gonna be.
Can I ask a question? Are these articles that you present to them, is that the final say when you go in front of them for this?
Well, that is,
You've already
so
had the-
these
you already had the-
articles are the ones that this commission has already voted.
Right.
It wasn't unanimous, but we voted to put them forth to town meeting.
Right, because you've had the public hearings and all that stuff leading up
Yes.
to it. So my question, can I have a question?
Sure, absolutely.
Are we talking about both bylaw changes or
We can.
amendments? Or are you just sticking on the water structures?
Nope. We can do both.
Both are gonna be on the meeting, so.
Well, I just had a question about the reduction of square footage, 3,000 to 1,000 square foot. And I look at it from a standpoint of, I have a couple questions. If we do that, do we have the staffing in the town to police that? Because that's a substantial area. From the state law, it's 5,000 square feet, and now we're down to 3,000 square feet. Now we're going down to 1,000 square feet. 1,000 square feet is smaller than this room. If you count the ceiling tile grids, which I did before in here, that may put a lot of burden on town, on folks, that they'd have to be in front of us. And I'm not saying that, the rules are the rules, but do we really need to go that small? What has led us to that decrease in size? Are we having problems managing 3,000 square feet versus 1,000 square feet? Just my questions.
Yeah.
I mean, I can answer one or two of those things, I think, or at least provide my perspective or this perspective of the board at the time, is I don't think that there's going to be an excessive amount of additional patrolling necessarily. I don't think that there are 50 wetlands out there that are, less, or over 1,000, or, around the 1,000 to 3,000 mark. We do have some vernal pools, and vernal pools are inherently, some are protected, regardless of size. And those are but I think it's meant to really capture those more small isolated wetlands, which may or may not be vernal, which, do provide significant habitat and stuff like that. I don't think the burden, I guess we'll have to see, I don't think the burden's gonna be that much more than previously. And I'll just say that my research, or the research we did in regards to other towns, the biggest, there's a mix. Some people say, some towns don't say a square footage at all, which leads to them, because I was a commissioner in one of those towns before, people asking them to regulate puddles, pretty much, because they don't like their neighbors, and their neighbors disrupting something that's 50 square feet in size. So not having a square footage, I think, isn't the right way to go either. Most towns are between 500 and 2,500, just to give you some perspective on that. So,
And the state law is 5,000 square feet.
the state law is 5,000 square feet, correct.
If I could add, I think we felt that you could have some highly functional wetlands that were not vernal pools under 3,000.
Yeah.
And, really important ecological wetlands in that size area. We did discuss going to 500, and I think there was some pushback on the commission, and some members felt 500 was just too small. So that's where we ended up on the 1,000. So, it's tough without taking you out there and showing you spots that would fit in this category, but really functional places that should be jurisdictional in terms of having a setback from development,
I just think that's a lot to grab of people. I don't know, that's my personal opinion. I mean, to go from 5,000 down to 1,000, and then the discussion is possibly 500,
Yeah, it's a good point.
it could be tough on people, and here we are trying to do things, and I don't know, I just don't know if it's just my opinion, gentlemen.
And one thing I will say about the state standards, I don't think you're seeing as much change in the Wetlands Protection Act at the state level as you're seeing at the town level. So you'll see some metrics that are really really old and outdated. And so 5,000, is a big area, and it really should have a full setback protection. So the state Wetlands Protection Act isn't the best standard, I think, for us to consider. Looking at other towns, seeing what other towns do.
We had a lot of discussion on this. You minimize that even. It was really difficult at sometimes. But the other thing I look at with a lot of these things too is that with all the development that we're seeing going on in this town, a lot of these smaller wetlands are disappearing. You know, people are just plowing them right under. And I think it behooves us to make sure that we protect what's left. I mean, it was gonna create a hardship for some developer someday, yeah, I'm sure it will. But is that the right thing to do? Yeah, I also believe that is too. So,
But I'm just thinking, I know some property that people have that exist in homes, and now they'll be next to something that's small. You know, it could impact them.
and they would otherwise
Now, they
just-
didn't have to before.
Yeah,
You know, so I mean, I'm thinking of that side of the coin, pre-existing things that are already there, now, you know, it's gonna be a difference.
better habitats too.
That's also where the town vote comes in. It's that big of a change where it's not to be changed at this table. on
Right.
their own.
Right, on the
Yeah,
town
it's
floor.
bylaw.
I understand. Just making my opinion out there.
Well, good, no, I hope, do that
Never
often.
be afraid to have
'cause
your
it's,
opinions
you
or
know,
voice
it's
them.
good
Never.
discussion, and helps reinforce us, I think, that we make the right decision too, Alan.
Yep.
So challenge us when you want to.
We all challenge each other.
Yeah, challenge me too, right, exactly. I expect it.
Any other comments on that? Oh, yeah. There's a typo on the second page of that one, too.
Oh, is there?
Wetland protection bylaw 1, under shellfish, mulch, including but not limited.
Wait,
Where is it?
Shellfish, down
Did
toward
I
the
already
bottom.
catch that one? Oh, I caught it, somebody
You
caught
got
it
it?
in water dependent structures
Good,
for me.
okay. All right.
But not, yep, got it.
Does anybody want any background on the last review by the Board of Selectmen on these and how that went? As
Sure.
well as what I think Ernie and I are gonna consider presenting. I would like to present the PowerPoint presentation that we used last time. That we used to, make our decisions, and then also present the actual changes that Amy has written up, that language. So, the previous time, it was one article of, what, 50, 48? There was a lot of articles,
Last town meeting?
Yeah.
There was over 60.
over 60.
Yeah.
And so, the argument was, number one, there's a lot of things being presented, we want to pare things down. Number two, we haven't seen enough of this yet. They really wanted a standalone presentation where we present the topic to them. And it was a little disappointing from my end because it was a no-cost topic. It was an article that, there's no cost to the town to move it forward. We had 5 individual hearings on it, so it was discussed a fair amount in this room. But it was a 2-2 vote not to let it go forward. And so I personally, as chair, discussed it with the chairman afterwards, with all the Board of Selectmen members afterwards. And they said, next time, bring it back, give us a presentation, and we'll consider putting it up forward. So that's where we are. I think we're really fortunate to have a chance again. And so I think we're just gonna go and present what was voted on and see what happens. Could something be changed? I think at the Board of Selectmen level, it's really an up or down vote where they wanna
Well,
move it forward.
they can make a couple votes.
Yeah.
They'll probably vote to either support or not support the
Right.
article, and then to put it or not put it on the warrant.
Right.
I would, and whether they support or don't support the article, that's their decision.
Right.
But whether, it ultimately is their decision what to put on the warrant too, but I would just really reiterate that, you've worked hard on this, we've had numerous public meetings, we're trying to go through the process. It has gone and been vetted through council. We were not able to get on town meeting in the spring, and we understand, but we really request, even if they don't support, if they don't support the articles, that they at least agree to let the citizens of the town decide at town meeting this fall.
That's kind of the way I think it should go. The one item that is somewhat controversial is the moratorium on the Herring River for docks and piers. The rest of them, I think, in my opinion, are somewhat watered down. There's some that have some strength, but others were, for example, there is no setback change. We kept the 65-foot setback, which to me is a very old setback number. And so if this were not to carry, it'd be unfortunate because we would lose a chance to have changes to some other components of the dock and pier regulations that are really important. And, so we'll see what happens.
Yeah.
I actually have a question about the Herring River dock moratorium. And I was reading through that and realized that what the language says is that docks are prohibited on both sides of the river, but then it cites lots as the two extremities,
Yeah.
only on the west side of the river. And that seems sort of ambiguous to me. What happens on the east side of the river?
Well, on the northern extent of it, there are no houses on the east side of the river, really. It's all marsh or it's owners unknown on the north side. I mean, there's like, somebody who lives almost on that, it's not an island, there's a causeway to it. I mean, we could use on that side, on the east side, but they're quite a ways, they're right before the bridge at 28. Somebody lives out on that little island there.
But just for the sake of argument, if someone decides they want to put in a dock, like across from North Road, across the river from 47 North.
Mm-hmm.
There's nothing, there's no explicit language in there right now which defines what the limits on that side of the river are.
I could probably do lat and longitude, to be honest, if that would make it easier, but.
Isn't there a lot that, or just a language that says on both sides of the river from, still stating the two lots that are.
Oh, it doesn't
in
say
there.
that? I could,
Well, it says on both sides of the river, but it just doesn't say anything about what the limits on the east side of the river are, and so
yeah, I'm gonna find
it's
this.
a little confusing to me.
Both
and I'm
sides of the Herring
concerned
River.
That's gonna lead to some confusion and ambiguity and somebody trying to drive a
I don't-
D3 through that,
Has that language been submitted?
I don't see where you've got that.
It's-
I'm looking at B, where it
Yeah,
says both
B.
sides of the Herring River. Area includes all contiguous parcels beginning at the northern boundary of map 28.
Yeah, that's a lot on the west side of the river, and the southern boundary is a lot on the west side of the river. So I'm just saying, I'm concerned there's some ambiguity there.
Okay, yeah. I don't know how we
But
fix
I
it,
don't see a
because
reference to east and west on this.
both sides of the river, but,
That's the point. The two lots it specifies are on the
okay.
west side of the river.
I think I know what you mean.
The way I'm hearing, the way he read it, it says on both sides of the river. So
Yeah, but
where's the ambiguity? There's only two sides of the river.
There's no lot line on the east side of the river to define what the limits on the east side of the river are.
So you just draw the lot line across the river to the other side.
So I think
doesn't
saying
say
both
that.
sides of the river, starting at whatever the northern,
Do you put like
Attitude
a
is
semicolon there or something?
the
Does
southern.
that help? Because I agree
give a
with you.
number.
Yeah,
But-
you could do that.
All right, maybe you guys are right, it just.
No, but I mean, I think
You know
that
somebody's gonna fight it, so that's.
Yeah, somebody is gonna fight this, there's going to
somebody's
be.
somebody's gonna fight everything, so, yeah.
Yeah, and if there's an ambiguity in the language, that's where we always get into trouble, right?
But when it says both sides of the river, to me, there's no ambiguity.
Okay.
I can find a map
I
and
don't-
parcel for the other side, even if it's not owners, if it's owners unknown, as long as it has a lot number,
Yeah,
I
right.
can put it. So to make it easy, on both sides of the river and say, on the north side of the river, on the west side of the river, it's this map and parcel, on the east side of the river, it's this map and parcel, and then do the same thing from the bottom, east and west. That's easy enough to do.
And any
Well,
parcels in
the
between
river
those
winds,
four.
so you
And
could have
anything in
north and south
between.
and parts of the river banks. If you're gonna be
Right.
nitpicky about this. when it winds through,
When it
you've got
winds,
north and south, east and
yeah.
west. You're starting your northern boundary and your southern boundary, and it's saying
Yeah,
everything on
side.
either side of the river, regardless of.
yeah. I mean, we can
where
keep,
it is.
And
You
Stan,
decide
that's a
if you
very
wanna
good
keep it
point.
or change it.
By making that change, you're
South
going
of
to
the
have to make the change all the way
Yeah,
down the
all the way
river.
down the river.
And reference every parcel on both
Yeah.
sides of the river,
It's a winding river.
all the way
that
down.
parcel.
So I think by saying both,
That takes in
you're
everything, all the
Actually-
marshes, everything.
you're giving enough direction
Speak up, Alan, you had a good
without
point.
sort of over-defining in one area and then raising questions in another area.
Alan has a good point.
Maybe if you take it all the way up to the top of the river where the North Road walking bridge is, start there, and anything south of the North Road
Well, that's-
walking bridge to
That's the
the.
whole river.
That's
That's
what it
what-
says.
where you-
That's
Yeah.
exactly
Oh,
what it
is that what it
says.
says?
It refers to the northern, beginning at the northern boundary, which is the North Road near the pedestrian bridge over the river.
Oh, sorry.
Oh.
And
I
extending
already-
southerly down.
We're on the same
Speak
page.
up, huh?
We're on the same page.
Set me up for
It's
that.
been a long time
Any
since I
other
wrote these
comments
down.
on this?
Well, then we're in agreement, that's good.
We're in
I
agreement.
It
think
says
so.
all the way to
Yeah.
the mouth of the river.
There you go, that sums it up.
Oh, is that?
Yeah.
I think we're okay.
So I'm just,
We're tired.
But we don't wanna fault anything.
I say me.
A North Bridge, a North Road, and going on.
Pedestrian bridge.
Pedestrian, there you go, there you go. That's it.
So,
That makes sense.
no other
Both
changes
sides.
to these? Anybody have any other concerns, questions, changes?
Just one other thing,
Yep.
Chairman, back on the, I guess on the Wetlands Protection Bylaw, Chapter 310.
Yep.
In here, within 310-4, words active, lawful in front of cranberry bog. So what was the reasoning to add the words active and lawful?
Well, because, I think I brought that one up, honestly. That one I came up with because a lot of people were referring to bogs that have gone way long time by the wayside, the Cold Brook Preserve. They were calling, people when they talk about these types of wetlands, they don't call them isolated wetlands, they call them the cranberry bogs. So it wasn't meant to be like anybody's unlawful who was operating a cranberry bog. It's just meant to discern, because oftentimes just in speaking or even in our documents that we get, they refer to whatever wetland that is, which is now a freshwater isolated wetland that's been fallow for 100 years, as the cranberry bog. So,
But we already have rules that says 5 years active, right?
yeah,
So it has to be active for 5 years.
Right.
And active doesn't just mean growing the crop, it means
Right, right.
maintaining the property and all
sure,
those
of
things.
course.
sorry, I missed
It wasn't
what the
meant- it
original
wa-
question was.
They want to add the words active and lawful in front of cranberry bogs,
Yeah.
in front of the term cranberry bog. So there's already definitions in the agricultural, chapter 128, that says that an active cranberry bog is this set of terms, as long as your activity is maintained within 5 years. If you go outside of 5 years, then you have to go in front of the conservation, all those different things, but, and it doesn't mean growing a crop, it just means maintaining the property.
Right.
The intent to grow cranberries.
Yeah.
But, so I
Yeah,
guess
it was really, so maybe it was just really meant by me to clarify between what people often refer to. They say these wetlands that are 100-year-old cranberry bogs, they call them cranberry bogs still.
Yeah, those are inactive.
Right, but that's why, that's the only reason. It was just really for clarifying.
Well, maybe we don't need that then, I don't know.
Yeah, I think it needs to be there.
I would think that we would need it.
Okay, are we good?
I think so.
Fine.
Mark, anything on this, these bylaw changes? Oh, I'm always curious about how you're thinking.
I bet you are. Nothing I haven't already said. I do agree with Alan regarding the active lawful segment. I don't feel that's a necessary item. I think there's enough language built in throughout all the definitions to encompass that. I feel very strongly about the wetland size, 3,000 versus 1,000 square feet. I won't even bother going into the explanation because it's quite lengthy. But really, my concern is that it impacts a number of people in residential circumstances that are gonna be financial problems for them as time goes by. And I take that very seriously and I'm very concerned about it. It's not that I discount the theory of protecting the wetlands, but I'm concerned about people being able to cohabitate with these wetlands. And I see a clash, and that's what I'd like to sidestep.
I think you made those comments when we were talking about that,
I'm sure I did.
yeah.
No, that's all I've got at the moment.
I'll encourage all members to come to the meeting.
Yeah, I'll
It's
post an
posted.
agenda. And like I said, it's not remote, you have to come.
All right. Next item we have, do you want to talk about bills next?
Sure, I guess it's after 10 now, I'll bring it up briefly. We have a workday planned on, September 24th. Love anybody who can attend to attend. What we're hoping, this is just the start of the management. We need to have a larger discussion on the management. I did put the land management plan in your Dropbox for you. Probably for another night, we can have a little discussion if you want tonight. But in general, there's the whole of Bell's Neck itself that we need to talk about management of in general, and then there's the the wetland piece. So, that being said, just in the short term, September 24th, we're having a work day. We can get, I would think, I'm gonna try to get some of the, olive that's growing in there, some of the honeysuckle, some of the easier things to remove out of there. The frag, actually, I've reached out to several companies to request proposals from them for the removal of, I've counted, and this was a little bit ago, so it could be a little bit more. One small but getting to be medium-sized stand Phragmites and two small ones that regardless of what happens there, those need to get taken care of. What?
I'm sorry, I've got a question. Are they legumes or are they spread by seed?
Both.
Ooh, they do both.
They do both.
Okay, thank you.
They're pretty bad. So, they're similar to American beach grass. They have a deep root, but then they send out runners.
Yep.
And then they have the seed, which is wind, bird driven, everything else like that. So, we're always gonna have to be watching out for it, but now is the time to tackle the little bit that we have that's starting. So, also with the change to the Attorney General allowing us to do the Inlieu fees, we had the language in there we are currently capped at using $6,000 a year out of that wetlands account. We have 45,000 in there. We are currently capped. FYI, we have
By
40.
state law?
No, by the Board of Selectmen, which I don't think was, be it here nor there. The bylaws changed and we no longer have that cap. I will always make sure that we never ever run in the red there. I think the reason the cap was put into place was that several years ago, before any of you, before me, that account ran into the red. So I think the selectmen were being very cautious and making sure that didn't happen. It won't happen. We only use a couple thousand. It's usually for a third-party review or something we use it for. I would like to use that money, start using some of that money for this frag removal.
You say the cap has been removed.
We have it's an amount not to exceed what is in the account.
Yeah, okay, that's good.
Oh, so you could spend a significant chunk on something like that.
Yeah, the frag I don't think will be much because it's not a huge area. But yes, you could. We wouldn't have to worry. And the cap before, it's not that we couldn't spend more than 6,000. It's that we would have had to return to the Board of Selectmen to ask to use the extra money and prove that we had it. We do have it. I checked the account. We check all of our accounts monthly. I have a monthly finance report we do. So we're on top of it with the money.
Amy, do you think we can fit in a discussion item on a future agenda soon after the 24th? So we go out there, we do some work.
Yeah.
Can we talk as a commission soon after that on updating the management plan and what we really want to do there?
I think it's a good idea. Maybe that day if we have time, because I've budgeted the whole day. I don't know if people can or not. I'd love to take people on a walk around there and show them the areas that are in the management plan, areas that I want to work on with our AmeriCorps member that we're now going to have 2 days a week here at Town Hall, starting in October, which is going to be great. I think we can get a lot of management done this year in the entire conservation area itself. So I like your idea that after that meeting, that would put it on the October 6th meeting. I'm just gonna make myself a note to pencil it in.
In truth, we'll be talking about it that day, but not everybody's gonna be able to make it. And so, not long ago, we had a subcommittee, but Jim has left, and so is the subcommittee still a viable way to talk about these things? Probably should talk about it as a full group. What do you think, Mark? You were on that subcommittee.
I mean, you and I are left, so I mean,
Do we add more people, or we just open it up and,
no, I think we need additional input.
yeah?
Pretty soon it's gonna be you.
I mean, I really love everybody. I mean, most of you are very familiar with the area. But anybody who's not, I'll happily take you through the area.
This was, I hadn't seen this before, the management plan. It was really well done, let alone all the pictures that you had and all too.
They spent an entire year out there, 1 or 2 days a week, doing all the flora and fauna, observing issues, making recommendations. It was very well done.
Outstanding, yeah.
I think the vision has always been, okay, they've done all that legwork of the resources out there. Now let's decide how we're gonna manage the property going forward.
Yeah.
With it not being leased. And we have that document that we voted on to approve that had the different options, the 4 options on how to generally manage.
Well, that was just for the bogs.
That was for the bogs.
Yeah.
This goes well beyond that,
It
too.
does.
Yeah.
But I think that's 10 years old.
Yeah,
and
needs
so
an
we
update.
should bring in the bogs into that plan and then update that plan.
Was that done by BSC or?
Yeah.
Yes.
What's the status of the pump house? Is that gonna be demolished or taken out of there?
It's a good question, because
There's an irrigation engine.
I bumped into Craig Williams, and we were talking about it. He was the last guy to lease the area, and we talked at length, but he wanted to grab some of that equipment. And so I said, well, you know, talk to, people in town about that.
I thought he already took everything
And well,
out, but.
that was my question, because Don Howell, at one point,
It's still there, inside? I haven't been in.
Designated surplus equipment, wasn't it?
yeah, so I didn't give advice on what to do, because I don't know how that works. 'cause
I'll
his
check,
lease
I'll
was
check
over.
into it. I thought, I had told, whatever he had,
I
There
think he,
had been some question about ownership of what was there,
okay.
He
so.
he
that-
paid for it, and he said, I think I want to grab it. And I said, well, I can't answer that question for you. And,
Well, yeah, somebody's gotta decide who actually owns it, I guess.
Right.
would be
I mean,
the
he
starting point.
did abandon it wasn't that we said no more lease for you, Craig. The lease was abandoned.
he left 2 or 3 years early.
Okay.
So I'll look into that.
So on the 24th, what's the time?
We'll probably start at 8:30.
8:30? Okay.
Yep. We'll meet at, park between, along the access route closest to the old bogs there.
Yep.
Just
I've got
for the
lots of
shortest
tools,
haul.
if you need extra tools.
Yeah, I have some. I'll be bringing a chainsaw or 2.
Are we gonna hit the frag, just to mechanically take some
We'll
down?
see. Let's see where I get with the people. I'm afraid by then the frag's have gone to seed even then. So, we'll see. I mean, it goes to seed late September, early October. I mean, it's easy enough to cut.
Do we have to file a notice of intent or anything to do this work on the wetlands?
It wouldn't be a notice of intent. I would think administrative review would be the
It's
proper
for
date.
what we typically do for invasive removal or with the frag treatment, because it'll be chemical, like you'll see it next time HCT is applying to do a treatment, it would be an RDA. But like the autumn olive removal, I would let anybody at their property just take out those invasives. We we encourage people to do good things and get rid of invasives, so I hate to have them file for that. As long as it's, not taking a backhoe in there.
You might need it someday.
We might need it someday,
That's
but that'll be a permit.
Where is HCT proposing to?
You'll see, it's at the Cold Brook Preserve.
Not at, not on Uncle Beanie's yet, huh?
No. Okay, so I'll put that on for October 6th.
What?
It's manual, we should get back there.
manual, me just cleaning out the herring run, but there's a lot more frag than just in the herring.
Yeah.
But that's a tough one, Uncle Dean.
It's really easy, I mean, that one's there's constant input, we're trying to tackle these little isolated stands, but it's really, before they become that.
We backtrack for 1 second, because I missed something. What was the date?
Oh, for the workday?
Yep,
The 24th of September,
September.
yeah. I think it's a Friday.
Yes, it's a Friday.
If people can give an hour or two, it's even better. I'll have to look, there's many, I mean, places where you can get across to the bog, but we'll probably have to put down some stuff to,
Need some ramps,
we
yeah.
need some ramps.
It's quite
Anybody
a-
have some ramps for us to use? I'll see if DPW does.
Well, there's one spot where you can walk out there pretty easily.
Well, yeah, the one on the north side.
North side.
I guess my question would be specifically, what do you wanna do? Cause, you know, you got 10 acres of wandering around, where do you wanna start?
Yeah, I was gonna walk it ahead of time and kind of come up with a plan of attack. My initial plan in my head was to start at the far southern end and work north and have DPW potentially take down one of those blockages for the day, so we could drive back there and load up a truck with debris and be able to drive it out, and DPW could come pick it up. My intent was to start on that southern end and work north, and that way we're not just here, 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 and here. But I need to walk it again now.
Would flooding that bog help it? Leave it underwater for 6-8 months?
Potentially, I don't know it, so with most of the invasives that are coming in there, it won't kill the autumn olive. That won't kill the olive. And it could, there are some good things there that they like it a little wet, but not
'Cause that's the
wet,
easiest way to
wet.
go about it.
Oh, yeah, pests and
Everything.
vegetation.
Well, I don't know about killing, you know, I'm just trying to say if we
Yeah.
can kill out the invasive stuff, flooding it.
I'm afraid it would encourage potentially the Phragmites even more, and then I don't think it would kill the olive.
We'd have to
Not
queue
that
it up.
much olive on the south side there, was there?
No, it's mostly on the north side.
On the north side?
Yeah, there's frag on the south
There's
side.
more frag on the south side.
Yeah, there is a lot.
We've also consulted with mosquito control on what they would like to see in terms of it being wet, and we have those notes somewhere.
Yeah,
It's
sorry.
definitely a time of year at which they would like to see us.
The flood. That's a good point, though.
So we should revisit that too.
I think maybe we do it if, you know, maybe in the future, that's a way to take less
It would-
hand,
It's less
intensive.
labor, just pull the boards, gravity feed and let it go.
right, so I think maybe we first manually do
Flush
it.
Keep it going.
We have a rough idea of some ideas of what to do with the different sections, but we haven't nailed it down yet. So we also have to have a plan as to exactly what we want to see happen in each section.
Yep.
So I think we voted on the gradual naturalization option. That's what's on the table now.
All right,
For most of it, not all of it.
Yeah, I think the southern end allow it to become more wetland, the northern
Northern end.
piece allow it to become more upland. The one in the middle, section B, I don't think we've totally resolved what we want to do there.
We want to have some areas that would continue to be available for public to go in and.
The public and the whole idea of having some type of, Cape Cod textile, interactive farming exercise is still on the table. And so who knows, that could be a piece of what, Leo's talking about as well.
Yeah. All right. You want to do the minutes tonight?
yeah, if we can, that would be
All right.
great.
There were only two I saw, February 17th and
Yep.
June 7th.
Yep, we always put on more,
Yeah, someone snuck in the July 7th one.
Oh, when?
I
Like
don't know, I think while we were sitting here.
2:30 this afternoon?
if you didn't read it, we can put it on the next time, I don't wanna sit here reading it,
I read February 17th.
but we can do at least the
Yeah, I read the
17th.
17th and had no comments on
We
it.
always
Yeah,
put
me
more
too.
on the
No
agenda than
comments
we
on
get
the
to.
17th.
Yeah, I had no comments on 17th either.
So I haven't had a chance to look at the 7th stuff.
Let's just do the 17th then.
So, any comments, any other comments that we missed on the February 17th?
good to go with that.
Okay, can we have a motion to approve
I
the,
move to approve the February 17th, 2021 minutes.
second it?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Abstain.
Abstain, me
Two
too.
abstain. I think we're done then.
I think there's a motion to adjourn.
I don't know about you guys.
Surprisingly tired, it's 20 past 10.
I know, but we've had a lot of 10:30 meetings in the last year. You know, it's-
Yeah, this
For
was-
some reason tonight.
We were on a roll.
Me too.
We were doing really well. It was like bogged down at the end there.
All right.
So we, yeah.
Well, I move that we adjourn.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you, everyone.